In this beginner's guide, I'll show you how to get started in Manor Lords. I'll explain everything in such a way that even grandma would understand. I've included a link to the Notion checklist I'm using so you can follow along too. I'm currently playing on patch 0.8.05. Let's get started by clicking on New Game. Feel free to click on whatever portrait you'd like. You can change your name up here as well, and then you can adjust your coat of arms. I'm just going to leave the last one that I was using. Doesn't affect the gameplay. Click continue in the bottom right, and then we're going to start by selecting on the edge in the top for our scenario template. So we're going to start off here at the top, the scenario template. This is just going to keep all of our choices easy and simple. We don't have to go messing with any of these. By default, you start off on restoring the piece. This is still pretty bugged and broken, so I wouldn't recommend playing on that. Click on the edge. This will allow us to focus primarily on building a town. However, there is a little bit of combat in there, but don't be afraid. We will take our town all the way up to the point where you can defend yourself against the absolute strongest raids that they have to offer, and we'll get there pretty quickly. So on the edge, and then up here in the top right, let's go ahead and do your map selection. There's quite a few maps now that you can pick from. I'm going to recommend playing on Devil's Hill. Any of these maps is good, but I'm going to be doing this guide specifically on Devil's Hill. There's a section in the top left here that has quite a bit of land, and I do like this map. It's kind of an interesting one. Now, you will spawn somewhere all over the map. I don't know where. It's kind of randomized. I recommend picking this top left section up here. And more specifically, of these three areas you can choose, I like this center one, just because it gives us more options to get to different parts of the land without having to pigeonhole ourselves to one side of the map. So I would recommend doing this. Again, you can pick whatever you want, but if you're following this guide along step by step, this is what I'm going to be doing. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and click begin. Now, as we zoom in, go ahead and pause the game, and you can do that by pressing Z. Z will slow your game down, and X will speed it up, or you can just click on it down here. I do recommend getting used to the hotkeys because this is a real pain in the butt to come down here and do it manually. So first thing we do is pause, zoom out, and see what kind of setup we have. So in this case, we've got a rich source of iron, and you'll know it's rich because if you look at these, they're just regular circles. This means that it doesn't have an abundant amount of resources here. It's just kind of like a standard. The one with the little crown on top means it has a rich surface. That means that this has a lot of them. So you can see the clay only has 114 pieces, the stone 120, but the rich source has 1,147. And on top of that, very important, it also has an endless underground deposit. So that's pretty good. Now, every region has 2 rich resources. This one is only showing iron, and if you don't see any other one, that usually means that your soil is the other rich resource. Now, that's going to be important for this guide. Whatever your rich resource on the map here is not really that important. Any of them will work, but I do highly recommend making sure that your starting resource is soil, at least being one of them. So you'll notice if I go to Emmer, it's going to show a lot of green. And then if I zoom in a little bit, you can see some areas have 3+ signs, some have 2+ signs, some only 1. And if I go to another region, this region does not have rich soil. You'll notice there's some 2- signs, 1- sign, 1+ sign, and just very little green. So this is not a good area for farming. And you'll notice most of the spots on the map don't really have good areas for farming. It's kind of rare, but I do recommend starting with a region that has rich soil because it's going to give you a lot more options. It'll also introduce us to farming, which I do want to show you in this guide because it's one of the more complicated things in the game, but we'll do it in such a way that it's really, really easy to understand, and then you can expand and do it on your own. If I ignore farming in a beginner's guide and then you try and do it on your own, I guarantee you're going to have a little bit of struggle trying to figure out how to do it properly. So now let's say, for example, if you do not, let's say you started in a region that does not have a rich source of soil. So you get a bunch of red everywhere. Very easy. All you need to do is press escape, go down to main menu, go back to new game. Most of this will probably stay the same. If it didn't stay the same, what you can do is you can redo your coat of arms and then click this button right here, save coat of arms. And then next time you reload it, it'll already be there. All you have to do is pick which character you wanted to use. And then when we hit continue, notice that it has the exact same settings that we have. I just need to move my starting point up there. You can cycle through this a couple times until you get a rich source of soil. We got lucky on that first one. Second time, we'll see that it's probably not the case. So round 2, we actually got rich wild animals and rich mushrooms. Again, this is not a bad region. I'm just suggesting for the starting of this specific guide, I do recommend having rich soil. So I'm going to go back and load the one that I had before. And just to reiterate, you can double check if you have good soil by going down here to the construction tab. On the right hand side, you see this overlay. You can check it with Emmer. You'll see it even more apparent if you go to flax or barley. These ones are always going to have some yellow, even in a rich source of area. You can see here it's not all green all over the place. And if you go to a bad area, it's going to be red pretty much everywhere. It's very easy to tell right away that it's not a rich soil. So once you've got your rich soil, then we can start. And I do recommend before you do anything else, press escape, create a save file. You can see here, I've got my grandma guide start. So now if I mess up, I can just come right back here and start over. I don't have to recycle and keep going, save scumming until I get the exact start that I want. So that's it for the setup. Let's go ahead and move on into phase 1, which is year number 1. Now let's move into phase 1, which is going to cover the first year. If you hover your mouse on the bottom right over the date, this little MAR, so that is spring, March 2nd, year 1. So we are going to go from year 1 all the way up to the start of year 2 in this section. So first thing we want to do is take a look at what important resources are we going to be using. Now your map is going to look different than mine, even if you have the same rich resources. So for example, your soil is going to have different bright green patches. The yellow spots are going to be different. If we go back and forth between flax and barley, this is all randomized, so yours is going to look completely different. Same thing with these secondary resources. So the stone, iron, clay, these might be other things. Like you might have a pond with fish in it, or you might have salt, you might have clay. Like I said, in this case, we have clay, iron, stone, and mushrooms. We don't have any berries, we don't have any salt, so you can't get everything in one region, basically. You'd have to either import it or go to other regions, take them over and start extracting resources from them. So you can see our neighbor, we have a rich resource of salt, and I don't see another rich resource, which means the soil is going to be that. Our other neighbor over here is going to have mushrooms and iron. But for us, we will make do with rich resource of wild animals and then the soil. So rather than giving you an exact do this in this specific location, we're going to go over roughly what you should be doing. So start off by looking at your flax and your barley and your overlay. And again, you get to that by clicking on the construction tab, and that's going to bring up your overlays right here. You can see there's quite a few overlays. There's no overlay, underground water, emmer, which is basically your wheat, flax, which is basically used for your clothing, barley, which turns into ale, and rye, which is another source of bread wheat, essentially. It's just a less attractive option than emmer, and we'll go over why that is in a little bit later. But essentially, the most important ones are going to be flax and barley, because you can see here, there's specific spots where you get really good 3+ signs. 3+ signs here, and 3+ signs down here, and then there's a bunch of yellow where you're just not going to get that good of a yield. If we go to our flax as well, you can see it, they rarely line up. Once in a while you can get a little bit of overlap, so you can see right here this specific little patch has a little bit of 3+ sign for both flax and barley, but in general they're going to be kind of separate. Now if we go flax first, what I recommend doing is find a spot that's close to your starting area, and you can see right here our little villagers, little peons are down here with an ox, and then our starting resources. Now we want to find a location that's kind of close to that. Don't cut down your trees, so we don't want to place anything over the trees. We want to find a spot that's kind of in the open here, and you can see there's some flax up here, and there's also a patch of barley right here. So I would recommend for this specific run, we're going to put some outlines here to make sure we don't build over the top of it. And you can see there's a nice big patch of either only 2+ signs, which can still be decent to grow crops on, but I think in this case we'll focus on the 3+ signs. So for barley, we'll make sure that we don't build over this specific area. But right here, this could be a good area where we start our initial build for the base, because you can see there's no good flax and there's only mildly decent barley right here. So we could section this part off for our base. So we have flax up here, we have barley right here, we have our starting base right here. We don't need to worry about anything else past that. This will probably take us toward the end of the tutorial. We're not going to take over the entire map because that's going to take way too long. But like I said, this is going to be a good starting spot. So what I recommend doing is getting a little zoomed in and kind of look at the contour of this. And what we're going to do is build a road around it. And in anything inside that road, we're going to make sure we do not build any buildings inside there. So we'll start with our flax, and I'm going to go to the roads right here. Notice this one has a nice curve like this. So I'm going to grab my roads. And unfortunately, you can't keep the overlay up at the same time. So that's why you kind of have to go back and forth a little bit. But essentially, look at it right here. I'm going to build my road. I'm going to start it right here. You start by clicking on it, and you'll notice it does only straight lines. We don't really want straight lines. It's kind of ugly if you have a bunch of jaggedy edges, but you'll notice every time I click, I can make shapes. I can make all kinds of curvy shapes. And then once you're done with that, you can hold control and you can mouse wheel up and down to change the curves. So you can make it however shape you want. You can make it really smooth. You could still make it kind of jaggedy or even funky. So let's undo all that. But what I would recommend is kind of tracing the outline of this flax like this. So I'm going to just gently, oh boy, did I mess up my road curvature? Yeah, I'm going to keep it right in the middle so it doesn't get all funky on me. There we go. So I'm just going to trace it kind of like this. And you don't have to do the whole thing in one go, because if you're like me, you get like 10 seconds after looking at it and I already forgot what it looks like. So you can see here, I kind of traced over some of the triple green pluses. So I don't really want that. When you need to delete a road, click on your roads again, and then hold Alt, and then click on your road, and then you can remove it. It's free, it's instant, no big deal. Now this is the King's Road. Notice if I hold Alt and I click on it, I can't delete it. This is the road that is set by the actual game itself. This is important because we will need to build a trading post on this at some point, but just know that you can't delete the King's Road. So anyways, back to what we were doing, flax. Let's go ahead and set our road again. You can see it kind of curves over here and comes down to this little patch of bushes. So we'll do it again one more time. We'll go out a little bit wider this time. So we'll make it nice and wide, and then it's going to come over like this and then curve back in. It doesn't have to be perfect, so don't worry about it. Like if I cut a little thumbnail off right here, you could probably just ignore it. Not that big of a deal. And then down here, there's another patch down here. So we're just going to continue this line. Don't go into the forest because we don't want to chop these trees down for nothing. Like I said, we'll need that later. And you can see here, now we've got our flax kind of insulated. Now, the next thing that I do recommend doing is putting some bisecting points. So when I say bisecting, I mean anywhere that you feel like would help your villagers move from one side to the other quickly. So for example, if they start out down here and say they come over here to maybe a house, or this is where we have our farmhouse, and then they need to get up here, if they have to go all the way around the outside, it can take them a very long time. But if you have a bunch of these roads that kind of go through the middle, this could give them more options to get to where they need to go, and they can do it a lot faster. So that'll cut down some time, either their travel time, or more importantly, when you get to the point where you're actually harvesting crops, there's some funky stuff that the AI does, but if you have more roads, they're more likely to go to one closer, and then rather than going to like the edge of the map and then coming back in. You got to work with the AI. It's an early access game, so just little stuff like this can help. So like I probably wouldn't build this, but you can if you want. So like I said, this has a decent amount of lines. This should be a good enough help. It also kind of gives you zones, makes it easier when you're building your farming plots, which we're not going to do right now. But if we want to build some plots right here, if we have already a bunch of lines set up to kind of insulate these, it makes it much easier to get these things set up properly. So anyways, we'll move on. Let's do the same thing to our barley. So we'll do another road like this, and then we'll also section off this area here in the middle where we want to build our actual town. So it's important to know where it's okay to build, where it's not okay to build, because you don't want to get to the point where you have critical infrastructure that you built in an area that you have to clear out, so you have to delete it. It just becomes a pain in the butt. So doing a little bit of extra legwork in the beginning does save you a lot of work in the future, and it also makes a lot of your decisions easier. If you need farms, you know exactly where they go. You need barley, it goes over here. You need flax, it goes over here. You need wheat or anything, it can literally go anywhere on the map, because wheat can be grown pretty much anywhere, or rye, literally anywhere on this one. So anyways, let me go ahead and do this real quick. Here we go. So looking at our map, we have flax up here, barley, and then we've got our bisecting lines, everything, so it's easy to get to any of those. And then I also have an area here in the middle where we're going to build. And you'll notice I also built bisecting lines. Now, if you want your town to look a specific way, you don't have to follow this. Like I said, this is just how I like to do it. And I don't necessarily do grids and straight lines. It's still a little bit of curve in there, but at least it gives us some basic structure so that we're not just shooting in the dark. So that's how we're going to start this part off. Now, next, we need to put down our starting buildings. So if we come down here to our construction tab, over here on the left is gathering. This is where we'll build the first building is a logging camp. So click on logging camp. It's all the way on the left. And we want to put this near a big chunk of wood. We don't want to put it on the woods, because notice if I zoom in here, you can see trees uprooted from construction, 12. If I move it around, 16, you could lose a lot of trees. And I don't really recommend that, because the more trees you cut down, especially if you're not getting any benefit from it, the worse off you are, because you'll have to then eventually build a forester hut. and replant all of your forests. So if you're just careful with your placement, you won't end up cutting down all your trees for nothing. So there's 3 spots that could potentially work. There's a big chunk of woods here, here, or up here. Now this I don't recommend on this right side because our starting location is right over here. So if we build a logging camp over here, it's going to take them a really long time. They're going to go all the way down here and then over, deliver a log, and then come all the way back. It just takes way too long. So what I recommend is keeping everything within a pretty short distance from your starting area. So like I said, this would be a good spot, or even up here would be okay. This is still a little bit maybe too far for my liking. So I would probably stay somewhere over here. Now, we're supposed to stay in the lines of this area. Let's double check and see if there's good soil here. So you can see there is actually good barley right here. There's 3 plus signs. So we don't want to build one right here. We could potentially squeeze it in right here on the outside. The logging camp is very big, so it does take up a lot of space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down here. And if we zoom in, click on barley, and you can see it doesn't actually cover any of the 3 plus signs. So that's totally fine. This logging camp is in a good spot. And we didn't cover up any trees. We didn't cut down any trees unnecessarily. And now we have access to a bunch of resources down here. Next, we are going to need 2 buildings from the logistics tab, which is right next to your gathering. So right over here, we want a granary and a storehouse. Now these, just build them close to your starting pile. So you'll notice when you first start out, you have a homeless people's tent, you have a hitching post with 1 ox waiting in there, and then you have a pile of supplies. So you get 20 of each item and only 10 tools. So 20 of these and then 10 of these. You also get another pile, which is, oh, they spawned on top of each other, but there's another pile right here. This is for timber. Now timber is used to build all these buildings. You'll notice this one costs 2 timber. We're going to need to build a granary, which is going to cost a further 2 timber and 10 stone. And then the storehouse, also 2 timber. So let's go ahead and build these 2. Again, placement on these, not really that critical right now. You can move them later if you don't like this spot. I'll show you towards the end of the guide, I'll show you a real campaign that I just finished up where I started in a specific location. So let's say I started right here, and then I moved eventually towards the mid and end game. I moved to a central location and I decommissioned most of that stuff and just rebuilt. I think I built houses there, and I built all the city center in one specific location. The reason you generally don't want to start building in a center area is because you miss out on a lot of stuff if you don't build things quickly. You'll notice right here, our people are homeless. They don't like that. You do get a grace period for the first month of being homeless. They don't really care too much, but you don't want to be homeless for too long because you'll get some disapproval. People might start moving out. So we want to move a little bit quickly here. We're going to get our logging camp, our granary and storehouse, and then finally, we need one last thing here, and that is a hitching post. This is under logistics as well. It's the first one. Put it right here, right next to the other hitching post. We'll move these later, but just put it somewhere next to all your other stuff. And then click on your existing hitching post, and you'll notice there's a button right here where we can purchase another ox. And basically what happens when you click this is you spend 20 of your money, and you can see how much money you start with, which is right up here, your regional wealth. You start with 50. So if we purchase an ox, it's going to take 20 out of our regional wealth, and then a trader from off the map is going to bring our ox, deliver it to our post, and then go on his merry way. So let's do that. It's very important to have 2 oxen in the beginning of the game because these are the ones, they're the only things that can move timber. And as I said before, timber is used for every single building. So if you have a single ox carrying 1 by 1, it takes a very long time. So obviously not really ideal. So I'm going to go ahead and speed the game up and allow these guys to construct this stuff. And then we'll come back and talk about what we do, how to assign people to get them working. We need to get our supplies off the ground and into the storage areas. We need to get our logging camp up so we can get more timber, so we can build houses. A lot of stuff we got to do. So let's go ahead and unpause. And you'll see they start grabbing stuff and they start building things. You're going to get a message. Just click track their movement. It doesn't really matter. This is not that important. But essentially, if you click track their movement, it keeps a little pop-up down here. So we know that we're going to get attacked in 364 days by a group of bandits. Don't worry about it. We will be ready in time long before they come. So again, speed this up. You'll see them start to build things. Now, if you have a specific building that needs to get built before all the other things that you have queued up, you can actually click on a specific building and increase the construction priority. So this hitching post I want done as soon as possible. So I'm going to turn this on the highest priority, and you'll see somebody prioritizes it, comes over here and builds it, and there, it's all done. The ox is delivering goods. That's perfect. Our granary's done. As soon as the granary's done, or your storehouse is done, as soon as any of these are done, make sure you pause the game, click on it, and then we're going to add a worker here. And we can do that by either using hotkey E or you can press this plus sign right here, plus and minus, and that'll assign or unassign a family to do that. So we start with 5 families. We need to have 1 family in the granary at all times. We need 1 family in the storehouse at all times. So we need to make sure we keep somebody in those spots. So we're going to unpause again. We should have our storehouse up here any second. And storehouse is up. I'm going to pause it again. Let's go ahead and put another person on this storehouse. And if you're worried about the stuff not getting picked up fast enough, you could even put an extra worker in there. It's really not that big of a deal. On this difficulty setting, it's not as important to do it because it doesn't rain as often. But if you play on the harder difficulty setting, the AI is brutal. It hates the player and it wants to do everything they can to piss you off. So you will probably want to get all your resources off the ground and it'll start raining and destroy all your stuff. So anyways, we've got a logging camp. This one's ready. Again, assign somebody. So we're going to put 1 person on there. Actually, we could put 2 people and get that going a little bit more quickly. Now, it looks like our supplies are pretty much off the ground. The last cart is coming to pick it up. Now, let me explain how this works. Your granary and your storehouse are meant to store, the granary is obviously for food items and the storehouse is for anything that's non-food items. The families that are assigned here have usually 3 people, but when you first start the game, the female's not here. It's just the father and the son, essentially. So 2 people. When we build houses, it'll be 3. But anyways, every family that you assign to a job, there will be 3 people working. When they are assigned to the granary or the storehouse, they have access to these carts, these hand carts. These hand carts, I believe the unupgraded one has 2 hand carts and you can assign 3 families. When you upgrade it, you can go up to 6 families and you get, I believe, 6 hand carts. I could be wrong in that. I think it's either 4 or 6, but you get more hand carts. Now, if somebody picks up an item by hand without a hand cart, they carry 1 at a time. So 3 people carrying, 3 items 1 by 1, essentially, it's going to take forever. So what they do is they grab this hand cart and then they can come over here and grab 10 at a time. It's much faster. So moving supplies is way better to do at a granary or a storehouse. So always make sure you're moving goods with these first, if you can. So let's go ahead and speed that up, get this stuff done. Now, a couple other things we need to do. Let's go ahead and pull one of these workers off just to have the initial one. Now, we do still need to have at least 1 at all times in these 2 buildings. The next thing we need to do is place down a market, which is going to be under the construction tab. It's going to be under residential. And then this one right here, the marketplace. So we're going to build it right in the back of these 2 buildings. And so the way this works is you can see this has this little symbol in the back, the square. You'll see that there's a couple things in this game that allow you to do free placement. So the market stall is one of them. Burgage plots or homes is another one. And then I showed you earlier when you're doing fields, this is the same thing. You can kind of make whatever shape you want. So when we're placing our marketplace, we just place it on the back side of your granary. Click on one of the points, go over to your storehouse, put another point, and then we need to do 2 more out here. Don't make it too big. It doesn't need to be too big. So just something like this. If you make it too small, it won't even snap. So whatever it lets you do is fine. So this, you can see 16 market stall locations. That's plenty. 16 stalls will probably support a population of 300 to 500, something like that. You don't need that many market stalls. So we'll build it like that. And then these guys, anybody that's working in one of these, they are allowed to set up market stalls. And this is how people get their supplies. So food will go to the market stalls. That allows the families to eat. And then they will also get firewood so they can burn it in their fireplace, whatever, and they won't freeze to death. So that gets delivered. So we have our granary, storehouse, and logging camp done. We've got workers in each. I think in the checklist I said to put 1. You could put 2 in the logging camp if you want to get this done faster. It might even be a better idea, but not that big of a deal either way. We need to get at least 10 timber as soon as we can, preferably 12, so that we can build extra housing and get people moving in. We can get some immigration. So next tab we're going to go here is the burgage plot level. So this is construction tab, residential, burgage plot, level 1. And we want to build some burgage plots. This is where people live. Obviously, we have homeless. That's not going to be acceptable. So we need to build them somewhere. This is going to be kind of a tricky subject because it's easy to just plop down a bunch of houses, just build them anywhere and then get it over with. But it's usually a good idea to spread your living quarters around, specifically around your jobs. So I know in the early game, we've got people in the logging camp, we've got people in the granary and storehouse. So it would make sense to kind of build it centralized right here. Just make sure you don't clump all your houses in one area. Usually it's good to kind of spread them out as the game goes on. So for example, if we have our farming villages up here, you're going to eventually build some farming houses up here. What you'll want to do is not have these people living down here and then working all the way up here. You generally want to build housing. So let's say if we build that right there, then we would want to build a couple houses right next to it so that they can live right next to their job. It's much more important for farming than other jobs, but it's important for any job because the longer they have to walk to commute to their work, the less time they have to actually work. They're losing efficiency that way. So if they live next to their job, it will save you a lot of time. You'll end up producing more stuff with less people. But in this case, like I said in the beginning, not that big of a deal. We just need to get some housing done. So let's build it over here off to the side. And the way this works is just like the market, you're going to click along a road and then build out, maybe 1 or 2 dots. I would say probably 1 dot if it'll let you get away with it for width, and then bring this out, give it some depth. And you'll notice if it's long enough, you'll see a house, which shows up right here. And then you'll see this little utility closet back here with a little hammer symbol. So this means this house is big enough to have a backyard burgage plot extension. It's very important that every single house, every single burgage plot you build is big enough to have this extension. So you always want to do it like that. If it's too short, it's going to look like this. You will not have an extension right there. The extensions are incredibly important for getting a lot of resources that are not able to be procured any other way other than trade. So don't do that. Don't do trade. It's better to build it in-house if you can't afford it. So the other option is if you make it a little bigger, you'll see this one. You'll see one house and a second smaller house with the same utility closet. So this little thing means that this is a duplex. You can fit 2 families on this one plot. I don't recommend doing this for almost anything. The only time I recommend doing it is if you're going to be building burgage plots that have the backyard extension for fruits and vegetables, which we will cover in this guide. Everything else should be single family, in my opinion. There's some people that swing one way or the other. I think it's easier just to keep everything with single families. And I'll kind of go over into slight detail here. I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but essentially, if I turn this burgage plot extension into something that gives me, say, meat. So you can grow pigs. You can also have goats in the backyard. So let's use the pigs as an example. You get 1 meat every month for every burgage plot that you have. If I have 1 family in right here, they can have 1 meat production. If I turn this into a duplex, I have 2 families in here, but they are only producing that same 1 meat. So you're getting 1 meat for 2 families. Whereas if I built 2 single families next to each other like this, if I built one right here and I built another one right next to it, I would have the same 2 families, but I would be getting 2 meat per month, not just 1. So you actually get more out of this than you do if you build duplexes. Now that doesn't apply if you're doing some backyard extensions that have vegetables or fruits. Those ones, it depends on how big you build it. So we'll cover that in a little bit, but you can see I can make this thing really big. So it does make sense in some instances. But for this case, we're just going to make it just big enough so that we get that backyard extension. Don't make it too big because then you're going to use up a lot of this prime real estate right here that we want to keep open for other industries. So let's go ahead and build that one. Now you notice we don't have any timber left. We need to continue to collect timber from here, from our logging camp. And as we get to timber, we're going to go ahead and plop down another house right next to it. So let's go ahead and unpause it. We'll keep an eye on the timber, or you can click on this and it'll show you. But you'll notice as soon as this burgage plot is done, our family will move in and we'll get the female. So right now we only have 2 people per family, but there should be 3, but they don't do it if there's no house to live in. There we go. Burgage plot's done. And then we just got a message saying a new family member joined the settlement. And now they are no longer homeless. So we're going to keep doing that until we have all 5. We have just enough to build another one. So we're going to go next to it. And it's going to get a little finicky. If you start to have issues like this where it's just snapping too much, there's an option right here. It's kind of hard to see because the UI covers it. I don't know why he hasn't moved it. But right here, right behind this road connection point, you see it says snap to roads. There's a little checkbox. And now it doesn't snap at all. You can do it wherever you want, exactly how you want it. It's a little harder to use that. So if you can get it to work with the snapping tool, that's much better. But you can see this one's fighting me. I don't know why it's fighting me so much. So I'm going to turn the snapping tool off and then we'll get it kind of right over here. Yeah, and you can see it's not wide enough, so we need to go out a little wider. It can be a little finicky. And this is probably a little bit too min-maxy. I'm trying to get this burgage plot to be as tight as possible so it doesn't use up as much space. And that means we could fit more stuff in here. But if you're just kind of casually putting stuff down, especially as a beginner, just use the snap to roads, make it bigger than it needs to be. I'm just a little OCD and it does bother me. So I'm going to do it like this. Let me go ahead and get all of our families housed and then we'll come back. Here we go. Once you hit 5 houses, you're going to get this pop-up saying that you increased your level of the village. That's going to do a couple things. So we get some free items If we click over here on our storehouse, you can see we've got shields and spears. So that will be enough to fend off the bandits in the beginning that attack us. It's also going to be enough for us to send out some parties to go attack these bandit camps as they start to spawn up. We don't have any now, but you'll see them come up in a little bit. And I mentioned 5 houses. Make sure you build a 6th one as well. We want to have a spare house open so that we can get more people moving in. People will not move in if there's no free housing. That's usually the limiting factor. The other limiting factor is your approval rating. If you don't have high enough approval, people will not move in. So right now we have homelessness minus 5%. So that's still causing us a little bit of issue with our approval, but we do have houses. We just need a couple seconds for people to finish moving in, and then that approval malice will go away. And then you'll see it go up, and then we'll, right here, now it says monthly migration +1. So that's perfect. So there we go. 6 houses. We've got room for 1 family to move in. Now you'll notice up here, this stuff all means things. So unassigned family, this means we have 1 family that we can assign to a job somewhere. 4 assigned families. So if you add these 2, we have 5 total. And then available living space, this 1 right here means that we have room for 1 family to move in. If you build a giant row of housing and you know, it takes time for them to move in, you can tell how many spaces you still have by hovering over this. You can see we got, monthly migration +1 for fresh settlement and +1 for approval. So we're good to go. Now that we've dealt with homelessness, the next critical thing to deal with, well, there's 2 actually, it's food and fuel. So right now we are currently at 2 months of supply for food and fuel each. And you can see right here, it's just a little bit of bread and then a little bit of firewood. So we need to make sure we have both of those in abundance. Now, I don't know what you're going to have in yours in terms of food. You might have wild animals, you might have berries or mushrooms or fish. There's a couple different options you can have. It doesn't really matter. They all fulfilled the same thing in the beginning, in the early game. So just get whatever the closest one is. In this case, the closest one to us is the wild animals. So we're going to go to construction, and over gathering tab, all the food collection is going to be in these 3. So if you have berries or the mushrooms, then you would use the forager hut. If you have hunt, you would use the hunting camp. And if you have anything to do with water, like a lake or a river, you would use the fisherman's hut. So it can either be carp or eel. And like I said, in this case, we have a hunting camp because we've got a nice rich source of game right here. So I'm just going to build it somewhat close. Be careful with these. If you put it too close, you'll cause the animals to run away. We don't really want that. So we'll just put this kind of close by, maybe as close as it can be without actually cutting a tree down and without causing this thing to run away. So right there should be fine. Let's go ahead and connect a road to it. And then as soon as that's done, we'll put some people to work in it and we'll go from there. But like I said, if you have other resources like the berries or mushrooms, be careful when you're putting them down. If I select my forager hut and zoom in, you could see these, I guess, mushroom shapes. If I build anything on top of these, it will actually delete your resource, and it deletes it permanently. So right now, there's a nice healthy 50 out of 50 mushrooms. If I build something on top of them, they will go away and you'll actually lose a bunch of food for that. So be careful when you're placing them. You want them close, but you don't want them directly on top. So something like this would be fine. This is too far for us to get right now. It's a really, really far resource. And I don't really feel like dealing with that right now. So we don't have enough labor to go all the way this way, grab it, and then ferry it back to our marketplace or a granary. So just take the one that's closest to you. If you're lucky, you'll have 2 that are close to each other, and then you can get them both from the early game. But for now, we'll just get the wild animals. Now, the next thing we need besides the hunting camp is going to be firewood. So under the construction tab, gathering, you're going to find the woodcutter's lodge. So this is going to be a building that will collect firewood for us, and we need to build it next to all the trees, but I don't want it to be too close to the logging camp because these both will be competing for trees. This one needs to cut down trees and it'll push that tree line back. If I build the logging camp over here or the woodcutter's lodge, they'll both work at pushing the tree line back, which means we'll need to either move these, replace the trees, or do something. It's better if you kind of spread them out, in my opinion. So I'm going to build one over here. Now again, I'm going to double check if I'm building outside of our little pre-designed road. I'm going to double check and make sure we're not building on top of something important. So like right here, this would have been bad if we built our woodcutter on top of the 3 green barley. Don't want that. So let's build it a little further north, like maybe right here, and then you can double check. So barley, plenty of room, and it's still within a reasonable distance of our storehouse right here. So let's go ahead and build those, and then we'll assign workers as they finish. All right, we just got a message that a new family has joined. If you look over here, this is another really important tip. Anytime you want to find out information about your buildings, hold down the tab button. So if you hold down tab, you can see a bunch of information that pops up. It's so much easier to do this than to click on these things, click on the tabs and trying to find the info that you want. If you hold tab, you can see immediately what we're looking at. So when looking at burgage plots, all these symbols mean something. This symbol on the top left with the circle around it, this is the level of the burgage plot. This is a level 1 plot. This one means there's only one family in here. This symbol means that it's missing goods. So if you click on it and then you go to the residential, you can see there's a bunch of stuff missing. So right here, amenities, we're missing a church access, we're missing water access. And then over here under the food tab, you can see we're missing access to meat, fish, or animal products, which we'll be fixing pretty soon. That's basically what, so you can see this food symbol is what this one is. This amenity symbol is this one. So that tells you exactly what is wrong or what is going wrong with your buildings. And then when things are able to be upgraded, it'll have a big green symbol. We'll go over that later, but holding tab, super important. Another very important function with tab is to figure out where your workers are. Now in the late game, when you have all your stuff automated and you don't need to move workers around, you don't need this quite as much. But in the early game, it is so important to know where your people are. So for example, if I need to put a lot of workers on one specific field, a good example of this is farming. In the early stage of farming, you're not going to have a lot of labor to throw at it. So you might need to pull people off of, say, the hunting camp, pull them off of your logging camp, your woodcutter, temporarily put them in the employ of the farming building, get them to put all the fields down, and when they're done, they can go back to working their other jobs. Like I said, in the late game, you can just assign them and leave them. You don't need to micromanage as much. But in the early game, it's super critical to do that. And holding tab lets you see very quickly who's working where. So this building has 1 out of 3. So I know there's one person working in the logging camp. There's one person cutting or one person hunting. And then when this is built, we'll have one there. And we have one in the granary and one in the storehouse. So that's all 6 people. That's 5 people accounted for. Sorry. We'll need to assign somebody else. Now, if you don't have any free unassigned families, you cannot build a building. So it's important if you're trying to construct a building, make sure you have at least one family available to go build it. So for example, right now, if I had all 3 people in the logging camp, that would use up the rest of our labor. We would not actually be able to build the woodcutter's lodge. So make sure you have at least one when you're trying to build. And then when you're not trying to build, assign them if you want so they can do something more productive. So anyways, let's go ahead and assign something for our hunting camp. Now, this is going to be specific to the wild animals, this is not applicable for other ones, but I'll talk about like the berries and the mushrooms. You don't have to worry about it. You just pick them as they come when they're in season, and then you pull your worker off when it's done. The hunting camp is a little different because you need to manage the amount of wild animals that are in there. So if we click on the hunting camp and go to the advanced tab, we need to figure out how many animals we want them to hunt down to. If you go down too low, you're going to have some issues because they will not reproduce quite as fast. So you do have to be careful. We don't want to hunt too low. I think in this case, because we have a rich source of wild animals, we can probably afford to go a little bit higher. Maybe we'll hunt down to 16. That means we'll kill 8 of them at a time, turn them into meat and something else. And then when it's at 16, they'll stop hunting and allow them to reproduce. They'll grow their numbers, and then we'll hunt them again. If you have a source of fish or eels, you will have a little pond. And then when you click on your fisherman hut, you'll see another same thing right here, but it'll be on the scale of like 150 to 160. On fish or eels, I recommend fishing down to say 70 or 80 as your reserve. So this number would go to 70 or 80. That's a pretty good number, I think, for those two. I've had good success with that. You might even be able to be more efficient than that. I don't know. I haven't tested it out, but you won't go wrong with 70 or 80. You should be just fine with that. And then for, like I said, for berries and mushrooms, as long as it says seasonal and it's growing, it doesn't really matter how many. You're always going to want to take this down to 0 because it grows back by the season. So you can't out hunt this. If I hunt the wild animals or I fish down to 0, you will literally kill this resource. It's gone forever. So make sure you don't, on the non-renewable ones, like the hunting camp or the fish, don't go too low on this. So if you have a regular wild animals, I think it's going to make you go down to, I think, 15 or 14 for your animal. It tops out around there. So maybe hunt down to like 8 or 10, something like that should be fine. Somewhere in that range. Anyways, that should be good. We'll start to get some resources from that as they hunt. That will bring up our food. As this is finishing, we'll start to collect firewood, and then you'll see this months of reserve remaining. It'll start to go up. Now, also kind of important, if you want to continue to grow your population, you need to keep building houses if you have 0 available living space. So in this case, I am going to build one more. I'm going to start spreading them out a little bit though. Let's build one over here by the hunting camp. I'm going to build one down here. So this will be the hunter, but we need to make sure that he's got enough space for that backyard extension. So there we go. Yeah, I went and double checked. So these go up to about 160. If you have a rich resource of fish or eel, it goes up to a massive 462. So there's a lot of food in there. You could probably get away with going half or maybe a little less than half. So I would probably stick to that. You might be able to get more than that out of it. I don't know, because like I said, I haven't tested this one specifically, but you should be safe if you go for half or a little less than half. So real quick recap for this specific placing the starting buildings part of the checklist. So we've built all the important stuff: logging camp, granary, storehouse, and then from there we built the houses. Then from there we built, oh also I forgot the hitching post in the very beginning. Built one of those with an extra ox. Then we built our housing, 6 of those, and then we built some kind of food production, whatever food you have. I don't know what food you're going to have in your game. And then woodcutter's lodge. So we have all the basics. This is enough to survive your first winter. If you did nothing else, you would be fine just like this. Obviously, we're not going to stop here because we want to continue to thrive and be ready for the first winter, and then also be ready for our first raid. Now, as we get attacked, we need to assign some people to help defend. However, we can't recruit everybody. Only the males are able to be recruited. And if I hover over this section, you can see level 1 families, there's 12 men and 6 women. 12 men is not enough. So we need to get our population up to at least 20, because that's however many spears and shields that we have. So that is going to be a priority, I would say. So to be able to do 20, we need basically 10 houses. So right now we currently have 6 occupied and 1 unoccupied. So we probably want to build up to 10 houses total. I'm going to go ahead and build another burgage plot over here near this guy. Like I said, this isn't really that critical, but it is kind of nice to have houses spread out a little bit so you can get more efficiency with your population. There we go. So we've got 3 more houses up here, 1 more down here that's still waiting for somebody to move in. So that's 6 plus 4. We got 10 houses total. We should have plenty of people in here. Now you do have to be cautious here. If you expand too fast, you're going to run out of food. And as you get into the winter times, you have no way of collecting food necessarily unless you trade for it, and we're broke. So don't grow too fast. You're going to end up starving your people out. You should be fine with 10. 10 should be doable. We will probably need to start collecting from this second food source, because I don't know if we can support a whole 10 families with just 1 wild animals. Now, as you start to get a few more people coming in, like I said, we need at least 1 person to help build. We don't need 2. So I'm going to use this extra family to go collect some of this food down here. So this mushroom area is very, very far away. However, it's still doable to get the resources from them. And what we're going to do is build a road from this. So you can see somebody going from the granary is going to go down here, down the road. They're going to go all the way over here. So we're just going to build a road straight. This is like literally worst case scenario, but we still want to get some food from this. So it's still worth doing. So build your road all the way up here. Like I said, be careful when you're placing these. You don't want to go over the top of them and delete some stuff. So we're going to put it right next to it, right there. It's going to take a while. And what's going to end up happening is we'll have somebody working there. They'll collect the food into this forger hut. And then one of our granary workers is going to spend half a year coming all the way up here, collecting it, and then taking it back. It's still better than not getting it because, like I said, we need food to survive winter, and we're not going to get there with just the wild animals, I don't think. So we do need a second source. So whatever your second source is, make sure you go and collect it. If it's closer to you, you can just do it like we're doing here, like this woodcutter lodge. It would basically be, let's say if it was, berries right here, you build it right here and then they would collect it. If it's far, you got to build a little road going all the way up. Get that resource collection node really close. You could build it over here and they'll walk all the way over here to collect it, come back. I find it's better to build it closer to here. And the reason we want to do that is because we get an economy of scale with the collection from the granary. So for example, these guys will collect 1 at a time and bring it back. The granary workers are going to grab a cart and they're going to grab 10 at a time and bring it back. So it's much better to use your carts, as I mentioned in the very beginning. Use your carts, prioritize them over prioritizing carrying it by hand. And that means building the collection as close as possible to the resource and then letting them haul it all the way back on their own later. There we go. They finally delivered a log to this one. They're building it, and then we need to get some families in there. Now, because this one is so far away, I'm going to recommend putting 2 families in here to get as much food from this as we can before this starts to shrink. So right now it says seasonal affinity teaming. Once it hits a certain season, this will start to shrink and you'll lose all that food. You want to get all that food out of the ground and into your storage, your pantry storage, as soon as you can. So even if we only get 50 from this and that's all we get for this year, that's fine. It's better than having 0, right? Right now we're sitting on 3 small game. That's not very much. So if we get 50, that should be enough to tide us through the wintertime. And it should help quite a bit. So that's what I'm going to recommend. If you have a source that's much closer, like for example, if this was our berry source or fish or eel or whatever, you would only need 1 worker. They'll do it in no problem. Now let's talk about how to make our people happy. We've got all the basics covered, but that's not really going to do it. If we click on one of our burgage plots, you can see they have food. They have 2 types of food, so they are happy about that. They have fuel to keep them warm, but they're missing church access and water access. And I know we talked about that before, but we're going to actually fix it right now. So going into the construction tab, under the residential tab, we'll start off with a well because this is the easiest one to fix. It only requires 1 log. Now, depending on your settings, and we have it on the default standard settings, if you go on an easier setting than this, you could just build these wells wherever you want. On the standard or the most difficult setting, you have to build it on top of a water table or whatever. What do they call that? Underground water. Essentially, you have to build it over this blue highlight. We don't want it to be in the way of our important buildings. So ideally, we would get it somewhere maybe like right here on the back side of this construction, the logging camp. I think somewhere right here is probably fine. It's not going to be in the way. You could build it over here if you like to make it pretty or, whatever. It's just as functional here as it is if it was right here. You just don't want to build it way out here because they do need to go to it. I don't know how often, maybe once a month or every month, whatever. They will go to it to get water, and then if you have it way out of the way, it'll take time out of their day that they could be collecting resources. So like right here, it's close enough to it's not really that inconvenient for them to get to it, but it's also not in the way of an important prime real estate area. So we'll build that. And then next we need to work on a church. Now the next thing we need is church access. And under the residential tab, you'll see the church here. However, we are missing a resource. We need 20 planks, 5 logs, and 10 stone. We have the stone, we have the logs, but we do not have the planks. We need to convert logs into planks, and we can do that by going to the gathering tab, and the third building from the left is the saw pit. Now the saw pit does require planks or timber, and it turns it into planks. So you might think, well, put it right next to here to your logging camp because then it gets the resource really close. I actually find it's better to build it closer to your storehouse because an ox will come by, grab a log, drop it off there, and they will actually preload your sawmill. So as you reach the capacity for planks that you have set, which we'll cover that in just a second, they'll already have them waiting, ready to go. So you can carry, I think, 5 of these things. So it's usually, in my opinion, it's usually better to put it near your storehouse than it is to build near your logging camp. In this case, it's kind of close to both because we have everything very centrally located. So I'm going to put one, and this is one of those buildings where you could probably get away with putting it in the back somewhere. It's an odd shape. There's not too many buildings that build like this. So for example, if I want to build, let's say I want to build some industry, let's say like one of these, you can see the houses are not too far off from the shape of a burgage plot, like the length. Same thing if I want to build some of these. But then if you put this stupid building, look how small it is. So if you put this right here, you're going to have this giant gap in the back, and what are you going to put there? So I don't know. I usually like to build the saw pits out of the way, close to the storehouse, but kind of out of the way so they're not taking up valuable real estate. Because like I said, this is something that once they have logs in here and they need planks, they're just going to convert logs into planks, and then they're going to walk 10 feet away to the storehouse to bring the resources. It can be in the back somewhere. Or you could put it here on the road, make it look nice and pretty. You're probably better at that than I am. I'm terrible at making stuff look good, so I'm just going to put it back here. But essentially, once this is done being built, we do need to put some limits on it because you don't want to just mass produce planks because then you'll fill all your storage, you'll use up all of your logs, and then you're going to have some trouble. So let me show you how to do that. So our saw pit is done and ready. Let's go ahead and put a worker assignment. We need to go to the advanced tab, and we need to turn on the production limit. You could also add a reserve, but I find it's actually better. You could do both. I usually only do the production limit. And what this means is we're going to saw logs into planks until we reach a certain amount. And in this case, in the beginning, early game, 30 is a good number. Once you get to the mid game, you can probably increase that to 50. If you have an industry that uses a lot of planks, like if you're making shields, if you're making a lot of weapons that require like spears, those require planks. There's some other things that require planks, like wooden parts, I believe. If you have an industry that's heavily reliant on planks, you want to increase this even higher, maybe even up to 100. And then by the late game, you probably don't need more than say 150 or 200. It's very rare you're going to need a reserve of higher than that. If you need a reserve more than that, it means you probably are bad at setting up your town. So I would maybe focus on maybe optimizing your production a little bit better. So start off with 30. As we progress, we'll increase this a little bit. And then as you get to the late game, you can increase it even a little bit more. The reserve basically means that if there's 5 or less timber in your logging camp, they will not touch it. Again, I don't think this is that important. I would probably leave this off. If you want to leave it on as a reserve, just to make sure you always have enough to build at least like a couple burgage plots, you could set this to maybe 4 or 6. This will allow you to build at least 3 burgage plots no matter what happens. I'm going to leave it off because I've just never really needed it. So we'll leave it like that. Now, the ox is going to grab a log from here, take it over, and you can see there's a timber storage of 5 here. And that's what I was saying. Even once we get up to 30 timber, this building stops functioning, but they will still load up logs into this timber storage. And then as we use our planks, they will just grab from the timber storage. So it doesn't really make sense to build it right next to your logging camp because you already have 5 in the pipe ready to go. So anyways, maybe over explaining that a little bit too much, but let's keep going. We need to get 30 planks. Well, we don't need 30, we need 20. So once we hit 20 planks, we can build our wooden church. So let's speed up till we get that. Also, let's check in on our workers over here. You can see we do have some food here. That's perfect. We have 35 food. Now, I don't know if our granary worker is picking stuff up. They are actually. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, they got some people coming in. Hopefully they have carts. He has a cart. What about the other one? They have a cart as well. That is perfect. Okay, so now you can see the power of building stuff close to the extraction, because when you have your granary, like these two guys are going to grab 20 from here. You can see we have 35 out of 50. They're going to run out of storage soon. However, those two carts are going to take 20 out. There's going to be 10 each. So this is going to go back down to 15. We'll have room for grabbing even more of these mushrooms. And you can see right now it says seasonal, and in parentheses it says growing. Right now we are still getting more mushrooms. So we want to collect as much of this as we can. And then once growing season is done and mushrooms are 0 out of 50, then we pull our labor back and put it to something else. But as they say, when the sun is shining, make hay. In this case, mushrooms. Soon we'll be making hay, but right now we're doing mushrooms. Also, I know I mentioned it, but I'm going to reiterate. Mushrooms and berries are essentially the same thing with a different graphic. They function as literally the same thing. So when I say mushrooms, I literally mean the same thing as berries. So you put your collection right next to it. If it's far away, you can just collect it from there. And then because it's a growing season, you want to take it all the way down to 0. If it was something else that was really far, like the wild animals, then you probably wouldn't need to do this kind of setup as much. Anyways, let's keep going until we get enough to build our church. All right, our well just finished, and you'll see water access starts to pop up right here, and that will increase their approval. It's sliding up because we're adding more amenities. We just hit 25 planks. That is more than enough to build a church, but however, and we didn't set a reserve, so we don't have enough logs. I was just talking about that. So what I'm going to do is assign more workers here. Let's speed up gathering logs so that we can get that done. I'm also going to pull the worker from here because we don't need him collecting. We don't need him sawing planks because we have exactly what we need to build the church. Also, when it comes to berries and mushrooms, if you are working with them, once you get it down to 0, you can pull a worker off because it's going to be really hard for this to grow fast enough for you to justify needing 2 workers here. So just put 1 family on it. You should be fine. But in the beginning, I wanted 2 because I wanted to get it down to 0 as fast as possible. If you are at anything lower than 0, you're wasting efficiency when it comes to mushrooms and berries. You always want to pick this down to 0 because it's going to grow no matter what that number is. So like, let's say for example, if we let it go up to 50 out of 50, that means it probably added, maybe there was only room for 10 mushrooms to grow, but maybe it grows at 20 each tick. So we just lost 10 food. But if we have it at 0, we get the full 20 instead of only getting the 10. So you always make sure your berries and mushrooms are at 0. As soon as they start growing, get somebody on it, keep it at 0 for the whole growing season, and then pull your worker off if you're going to be micromanaging them. There we go. We have 5 timber, 25 planks, so we got more than enough. Let's go ahead and build a church. The church, again, residential. It's on the right-hand side, wooden church. Now, this is another one of those buildings that doesn't have to be anywhere specific. They will go to church to pray, and you will use the church to bury people when they die in combat. However, that's not really that common of a thing, both praying and combat. So what I would recommend doing is putting this thing somewhere out of the way. You can build it on the backside of houses like this. You don't have to have roads connecting to it. You can put it in an inaccessible spot. In this case, we'll probably end up building some industry right here. So what I would maybe do instead is double check here. Yeah, see, we don't want to build it on the barley. There's no flax here. Let's see if there's another spot we can put it in that's kind of out of the way. I also don't want it too far from our storehouse because it takes forever to deliver the goods. We could build it. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I usually like to build it kind of at some awkward spots. So I'm just going to build it behind these houses. It's kind of hard to get industry back here unless we build roads leading through all this. So let's just use up this space. And it's really close to the storehouse, so it's going to be easy for them to get to it. And then anybody that wants to go pray, they have just a couple steps to go. We are just finishing up the church, and you can see as soon as that pops up, all these needs are satisfied. Now, this isn't going to last forever. It's kind of hard to do this in the first year. You might see these flash off and on. Don't worry about it too much. As long as you're not starving and as long as your approval stays, above 20 or 25%, whatever it is, then you're going to be just fine. And that shouldn't be too hard on this difficulty setting. But right now, if we hold tab, you'll notice there's a couple things that pop up. So right here, this up arrow with the house means that this burgage plot can now be upgraded to level 2 because we have satisfied all the needs and we have the available upgrade resources. So it's 2 timber and 8 planks to upgrade. Now, if we upgrade, they will require more things. They want more food, they want clothing, they want beer or ale, whatever. They want all this stuff. You need an upgraded church. So be careful when you're upgrading burgage plots. We'll go over that soon, but just know that that's what that symbol means. And then this green hammer symbol means that there's a burgage plot backyard extension that we can build. Now at level 1, we only have access to this left side. When we get to level 2 and level 3, we have access to this right side, which is going to be artisan workshops. So we'll talk about these later, but in the beginning, we will have access to these specifically, the vegetable garden, chicken coop, animal pen, which you can get either pigs or goats, or an orchard, and then finally an apiary. We are going to build a decent amount of these. We'll probably get at least 1 or 2 vegetable gardens, 1 or 2 orchards. Most everybody else will be either animal pen or chicken coops. And then finally, we'll have at least 5 apiaries. And we'll talk about why that is in a little bit, but we'll get a little bit of everything. We don't have a whole lot of money to do this. If you hover your mouse over it, you'll see that they all cost money. These don't cost money until you get into the actual extension, but they're pretty expensive. So we're mostly going to be sticking to these and then maybe the apiaries, but the apiaries are expensive too. These cost 50 regional wealth for each one that we do. So one of our first priorities is to start making money, and we'll talk about a couple ways to do that next. Now let's handle a couple more things before winter comes. So first thing, you'll notice that our storehouse is starting to get kind of full, 209 out of 250 storage. That'll go very quickly, and you don't want to have that maxed out. So let's go ahead and upgrade it. We need 2 logs and 16 planks. So we'll click on that and they will upgrade that. You also get more, as I mentioned before, instead of 3 workers, you can have up to 6, and you get more hand carts so they can carry more stuff. It's not going to make a difference in the beginning. Really, the main reason is to increase the storage so we don't cap out. The next thing we want to do is build a charcoal burner, which is going to be under construction, under the industry tab, and then all the way in the left, charcoal kiln. Now, we could put this a couple different spots. You could put it directly next to your woodcutter lodge, or you can put it next to your storehouse. I'm kind of torn. I could see the reason why you would want to put it in both places. So one thing you can do is you could put the charcoal kiln directly next to your woodcutter lodge, and then you can disallow, I can't do it right now. On your storehouse, you can turn off accepting, it's at the bottom, you can turn off accepting firewood. So what would end up happening is this generic storage for your firewood, your woodcutter, would start to pile up. And then your charcoal kiln workers will go across the street, grab it, and bring it here and start burning it right now. If you don't do that, then your storehouse worker is going to come all the way over here, grab the firewood, and then come all the way back. Then your charcoal kiln worker is going to go all the way here, grab the wood, and then go all the way back and then burn it. And then the storehouse worker has to come all the way back, grab the charcoal, and bring it back. So you can see that's 4 trips. It's very, very inefficient. So either you build it directly next to your woodcutter's lodge, and then you stop allowing firewood to be taken up by your large storehouse, or you put it next to your storehouse and then just let the game do it. You don't have to change anything. I think this method is probably a bit more efficient, But I think this method where you put it next to your storehouse is easier. So for this grandma guide, I'm going to do it the easier method. But you could do either way, and hopefully my explanation made sense as to why you'd want to do one way or the other. But let's put it right next to it. Not going to be a particularly good look for the city, but whatever. We're going for function over form, right? So here, what I was talking about, if you go to your storehouse on the advanced tab, you can allow or disallow items in each storage. And this is helpful in the later game, which we'll cover a little bit later when we get into farming especially. You don't want to have your storehouses completely flooded with materials, and you don't want your workers to be flooded with all these requests to pick up things if there's too much going on in your town. So right now it's not really that important. The more important thing is if you want to do it the other way, you would disallow firewood by clicking on it, and then you see it goes from a check mark to an X, and now they are not allowed to pick up firewood anymore. They will only come up here to pick the charcoal when it's done being converted, and then go back. Now, essentially what the charcoal kiln does is it takes a single piece of firewood and it turns it into 2 pieces of charcoal. Firewood and charcoal are functionally equivalent. They do the exact same thing at the same quantity. So every burgage plot needs 1 piece of fuel per month during regular months, and then during the wintertime they use 2. But they use that to heat up the house and make sure they don't freeze. And then there are some industries that use firewood or charcoal to process their materials, so it's used for that as well. So essentially you turn 1 use into 2 uses without any waste products. So generally you don't want to use firewood, you'd rather use charcoal. So I'll show you what we're going to end up doing is we'll pull the worker off of the woodcutter lodge, and we're going to put him in the charcoal kiln as soon as it's done. And then you just need to remember to keep an eye on your fuel and make sure that if you start to run low, then you need to put somebody back on the woodcutter lodge so that you can keep your numbers nice and high. I would say save up like 1 or 2 years. And then as you get down below a year, then you start put your workers back on, you build up that supply back up, and then you can move them on to other things while your supply is nice and high. So that is good for that. The other thing we need to do is a trading post. So under the construction tab, under the logistics, and then kind of in the middle, we have a trading post. Now this, in order to do trading in the early game, we have to have it attached to the King's Road. And that'll make sense in a minute, but if I put it right here, this is not the King's Road because we built this. We built this road, these don't work. This is the King's Road right here. You can see it's a little bit thicker, and it's also one of those roads that I said you cannot hold Alt and click to delete. You can't delete these. I can delete this road, but I can't delete this one. So make sure you put it on the King's Road, and you want it as close to your storage as you can. So like if I put it down here, this isn't too bad. They would have to travel down here and over, but this is actually much faster if you do it this crossroads. So I'm going to put it right here. Yeah, don't make the mistake. Even though it's touching the King's Road right here, this is not technically the King's Road because that little circle indicates the entrance. So it has to go like this. So make sure you're actually on the King's Road. Which side should we do? Doesn't really matter. I'm going to put it right there. That's fine. So we need to get our trading post up, and then we have to figure out some kind of item to sell. So let's get all these built, and then we'll talk about what to do next. So the charcoal kiln is up. We pulled our woodcutter worker and we put him over in the charcoal kiln. So now you can see they're going to collect all that firewood. Most of this firewood's going to get converted into charcoal. Some of it is going to get used because we still need to heat our homes in the meantime. But this 113 will turn into 226. So that basically means we'll have to cut less wood to keep all of our population warm. So it is good to get your efficiency up by building a charcoal kiln right from the start. And then our trading post is almost done. Let's start talking about what kind of items we want to trade. Now, in my specific run, I got kind of lucky in that wild animal source produces not only food, but it also produces something to sell. So if we look here at our large storehouse, we have 35 pelts. Every time we take out a wild animal, it turns into meat and pelts. Pelts can't be used for anything anymore. It used to be that you can turn it into clothing and leather and all that stuff. Not anymore. So this can only be sold on the market now. So this is literally just an item for sale. So we already have it built in this run, but I'm going to assume that you don't have this because most of the time you're not going to have pelts from wild animals. You'll have to sell something else. So let's go through a couple of the other options that you could potentially sell. So there we go. Our trading post is done. We're going to put a worker in there and then go to the trade tab. So in this instance, as I mentioned, we do have pelts to sell. So if you go through, you can see there's construction, crops, food, crafting materials. Pelts are on the crafting materials. So what I'm going to do is open that tab up, and then under pelts, I'm going to do export. Now we don't need to keep any supply of pelts, so I'm going to take this all the way down to 0. I'm going to show you what you would do if you were to sell something else, but let's just talk about what this means exactly. Now this is under the minor trades. This means it does not require you to buy a trade route to actually sell these items. That's because your worker that works here, one of them will actually grab a chunk of these goods and then go to the edge of the map. Let's zoom out here and see. So there's a trading post right here. So they're going to grab goods and go over here, sell it, and then come back. They could also come over this way to this trading point and then come back after they sell it over here, and so on and so forth. So there's trading points all over the map that they can go to sell items. There's also, and let's see if we can get lucky and spot a trader here. So if we hold tab, you can see them. Yeah, I can see there's one right here. So if you hold the tab button, you see these little, it's like a money bag icon. So there's a traveling merchant right here. He will also come by from time to time and pick up items if it's something that's on his shopping list to buy. So you will naturally, you'll sell some items with your people, and you'll also sell some items passively through these merchants that are traveling. There's another one right here. This guy's probably going to come to us pretty soon. He looks like he's heading that way. Nope, he's going the opposite way, right? Yeah, he's going away. Okay, anyways, he might have just passed through our territory anyways. But yeah, there's quite a few of them around the map. If I zoom out, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them. 7 maybe? Maybe there's one for each territory. I'm not 100% sure, but they will passively come by and buy items. And also, if you want to import items, and we're not doing that right now, but let's say you wanted to import something, you could do the same thing. If it's a minor trade, you just do import, and then you set how many items you want your storage to have up to. And then when those traveling merchants come by, they will drop them off and sell them to you. So that's how that works. So minor trades, if it's a major trade, you have to buy the trading route to be able to trade these items. Even if you have somebody working, they will not be able to grab the items and sell them if you don't have a trading post established. So just be aware of that. And usually you're going to make more money selling major trades rather than minor trades. So if we go down here, you can see most of these items. Wax is actually pretty expensive. You can sell it for 6. Honey for 4. Most of the other stuff is between 1 and 2 though, so it's not a very expensive item. And if we come down here to the major trades, you can see a lot of these are pretty good. 5. Actually, these are not that good. Bad example. If we go over to here, like the weapons tab or some of these commodities tab, 7 and 6 is really good. Up here, Gambison sells for 10. I'm pretty sure that's a bug though. Plate armor for 16. So you can get some pretty high value items. But anyways, I'm specifically going to be selling these pelts. But if you don't, and like I said, you likely will not have wild animals to hunt. It's kind of a rare thing now. You need to sell something else. So I would say start with looking at what your major item is. So whatever your rich resource. In this case, we have wild animals, but let's say if it wasn't wild animals, let's say we had rich stone. Then what I would want to do is I would want to build one of these stone gathering camps, put it nearby. I would gather as much stone as I can and then sell it. Now for stone, let's just use stone as an example. This one would, if it's a rich resource, then we know we have an infinite supply. It'll have a certain amount, like for example, in the beginning, it'll have maybe a couple thousand. See if we can find one. So like here, the iron has 1185. So that's a lot. There's no way you're going to mine that in a couple years. It's going to take you a long time. So you can just sell pretty much everything you get and maybe just set it. So I would do an export and I would want to, let's say if we had, I don't know, 150 in stock. You'd want to make sure you keep at least a certain amount. So maybe we keep 20 and everything above 20 we would sell. So in this case, if we had 150 and we want to make sure we have at least 20 in stock so we can upgrade buildings and build other buildings, then we would sell 130 of our items, right? 150 minus your reserve is 20. So you would be able to sell up to 130. That's how that would work. So rubble stone, if it's a rich resource, is a good one. If it's a regular stone deposit, do not sell this because you only have a very limited amount. Same thing with clay. If you have a rich clay deposit, just sell the bare clay. And the reason you can eventually turn that into a better trade route selling roof tiles, but you have to have a major trade route. You can't afford that in the beginning anyway. So just sell the raw resource that you get. Same thing if it's iron, you can sell the iron. If you have something like a rich food resource, like mushrooms or berries, that one you got to be careful selling because you don't want to use your food. I would rather build a bigger population, then I would have a few gold from selling a food. So then you would want to sell something else. And there's a couple things that you could sell that is actually pretty good in the early game. One thing is going to be right here, your firewood. And as you can see, we piled up a big amount of firewood. So 101, we burned a bunch of it, turning it into charcoal. So if you come over here to the trade tab, fuel, it doesn't sell for that much. It's only 1, but you can see you can really spam this very quickly. And if you only need a couple hundred, you could do that easily in a year by selling firewood. You can't sell the charcoal. You can see right here, you have to have a major trade route to do that. So I probably wouldn't do that. The other thing you could do is planks. Every single region has a ton of forest. So you can easily turn your planks into money. They don't sell for a whole lot either as well. It's only 1 per. But like I said, if I wanted to sell some planks just to make some cash, then what I would probably do is maybe keep my reserve down to maybe 10 or 20 and then sell anything above and beyond that. And then you'll at least make some decent cash. So I'm going to no trade that for now, but what other options? I would say those are probably the best ones: firewood, planks, or if you have a rich resource that's not a food, any of those can be sold immediately. We don't need to make a ton of money. We just need to get a decent amount saved up so we can buy some better trade routes and then figure out what kind of items we want to produce to make our economy. But as I said, for this one, we already have a built-in one, so I'm going to sell these pelts. We'll pile up some of that cash, and then we'll talk about what to do with our money. All right, we are not quite in winter time, so we are September 4th, so we're at the beginning of September. We still have September, October, November, so we're actually just starting autumn. But we can basically kind of lump in this time in winter roughly in the same priority list. So we're still getting some things from the mushrooms, so we're going to leave this laborer there. But once this stops to grow, your mushrooms and your berries, you want to pull that worker off so you can have them do something else during the winter time, because he's just sitting there doing nothing. Now, we're pretty fortunate in that wild animals can be collected throughout the year. There's no downtime. But if you have fish, berries, eels, any of that stuff, you have to pull your worker off because you can't collect that during the winter time. So you'll see right here, we're not going to be able to give the right message, but right here it says seasonal. That means it's not growing. If you don't see the little quotation where it says growing, it'll say shrinking then. So like right here it says shrinking, seasonal shrinking. So that means we're pretty much done collecting this. There's one more mushroom. Once that one mushroom's collected, we'll pull this worker off actually. But what we want to do is redistribute their labor to do other things. Now, I would recommend collecting temporary things off the map. So for example, this stone is not a rich resource. This is not a renewable one. So you can't actually infinitely get this. For example, this is a rich resource of iron. This is an infinite source. So we can get that at any time. No big deal. But if we look at this, like the clay, that's temporary. Stone is temporary. And if we look back at our specific map, stone temporary, clay temporary, and iron temporary. Once we collect all that, it's gone from the map. We can't get any more. We have to import the rest. But this should be enough for this playthrough to get us through what we need to do. So let's go ahead and gather or get the infrastructure set up to start gathering these. So I'm going to put a stone gathering. You have to be careful with this. If you put it on top of these, it'll actually delete your stone deposits, and it's not a good thing. So put it close, but maybe not right on top, so where you're going to destroy your stone. And then just connect a road. Doesn't matter how ugly it looks because this is temporary. Once we collect all the stone, we're going to delete this building. We're going to delete this road. Just get it as close as possible, and then we'll start stashing that away. We also want to collect the iron. I would say the iron is probably the priority because that's going to allow us to provide more weaponry for our citizens. So we want to make sure we get that. So I'm going to try and put it in here so that it destroys as few trees as possible. I saw a 1. So you'll notice in your gathering tab all the way at the right, you can see we have a mining pit right here. So you can gather iron, clay, or salt. If I build it, you can see this orange thing that pops up. I have to have a certain percentage of my iron pit in range for this to actually be able to be built. You can see outside of range, says no deposit in range. If I move it a little bit closer, it starts to pop in. But you'll notice it does say trees uprooted, and there's like 17 all the way down to 1. If I jimmy it around here, I can see there's a spot where it only takes up 1 tree. So I don't want to destroy very many trees. I'd rather have the minimum. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to, again, it's an ugly road. It's temporary. We're just going to have it shoot straight across. The road will kill some trees. You can't really do anything about it. So not big deal. But yeah, let's get the mining camp or the mining pit there. This stone gathering, and then we'll do another one up here for clay, but we probably don't have time to do this one this year. I don't think we'll have enough labor to get all the resources out. So just do 1 or 2 at a time. It's not really a big deal. But again, during winter time, you won't be able to collect food. You won't be able to do a lot of your activities. So you need your people to stay busy so that you're not losing efficiency. So it's good to just start collecting these things while you have nothing else better to do. So I'm going to get building on those. And then the other thing, if you have food, if you have enough food stockpiled, you can start to build more burgage plots. But you have to be extra careful with this, because if you build too many burgage plots and you have too many population and you have no way to collect more food, you will starve your citizens. So be very careful with that. So in this case, we have 7 months of food supply, which is going to be enough. So if we do 7 months from now, so September, October, November, December, January, February, that gets us through winter time with 1 month to spare of food. Right. So essentially we would have just enough with this current population to survive. However, we are collecting food every month with the wild animal deposit. So we're actually going to get a little bit more than this because we have a wild animal. Now, if you have a rich resource of, say, berries or mushrooms or fish, you probably collected a lot during the growing season, and you might have maybe 10, 12, 15, whatever months of food supply. So then you could definitely afford to have more people. If you don't, and you're stuck at 6 or 7 and you don't have any way of getting more food, just stop at 10. You'll start to gather more people next year. But if you're lucky and you have a lot of food, you can grow your population faster right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to prepare for when we want to build out our fields for farming. Now, under your farming tab, so construction, farming, and the second one from the left is the farmhouse. This is where all of your farming workers are going to start, and they'll collect and bring resources back to. So you want to have this somewhat centrally located to where your farming is going to happen. So we'll probably do our first farming in this area. I don't exactly know if we should do flax or barley. So we don't really need either for a while. But I feel like flax is probably easier to deal with, but it requires a bit more labor. So, well, no, that's not true. They both require about the same. It doesn't really matter that much, but one thing that you might want to consider is what do you feel like you want to sell first? So if we go to the trade tab, go to crafting materials, and we can scroll down here, you could see flax can get turned into linen. And linen sells for 2 each. That's not very much. So not really a good resource to trade. You could also turn linen into clothes, which sells for 3. That's also not that great. But as I mentioned before, gambeson sells for 10. This is probably a bug. I don't think it's supposed to sell for that much. So this could be an option, actually. We could spam flax, turn it into gambeson, and just make a boatload of money. And again, if you're following this guide, it doesn't matter what your rich resources are, because I specifically made sure, or I wanted you to make sure that you have at least rich soil so that everybody following this guide can do that. So why don't we do that? Let's go gambeson first. I think that's probably the best, most profitable one. That means we are going to start putting some some fields down here in the flax area. So let's go ahead and put our farmhouse down. We'll put it right there. And we need a couple houses to be able to work those as well. So I would say you want to have usually 3 houses for every farmhouse that you have. So let's get this. We'll turn off snapping so that it doesn't keep forcing us to make a bad design here. There we go. So we still want to have that extension, the Burgish plot extension. So we'll make sure that we have enough for that. There we go. There's 3 houses, and I'm going to stop increasing our population because 3 is kind of a lot. I don't want to run out of food here, but we should be able to get that. So farmhouse 3, and then maybe later we'll do the fields. I don't want to put too much on you right now. Let's get some of this stuff built, and then we'll come back and talk about how to place your fields. And you can see here, shrinking, seasonal, 0 to 50. That is the sign that you need to pull your worker off. So we'll pull that worker off. They can help with the construction. So we've got a bunch of stuff being built. Hopefully they get to work. And then as I mentioned, you always want to try to keep a tab on what your food and fuel supply is looking like. So before, I believe we were at 12 months. You can see that's shot up to 17, even though we're not collecting new firewood. And that's because we're getting more efficient fuel usage out of our firewood. So we are converting this firewood over to charcoal, and that's exactly what we want to see. So just try to get in the habit of keeping an eye on this, maybe checking it once or twice a year. More frequently in the beginning and then less so as you go on. But always make it a habit to come up here and check how many months of supply you have, and try to remember what the number was before and what it is now so you can see the trend. And if you're ever not sure, if you don't remember what the trend is, at the top of the screen, you can click on this button right here, and then you can go to over here at records, and then there's another tab for resources, and then you can go to here, the past 12 months on the bottom, and you can start looking at all of the production here. So you can see we produced 176 firewood. We consumed 84 of it, and I think a lot of that actually has to do with going into charcoal, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you can check and see, okay, what is being produced? Is my number going up or down? And obviously it's going down right now because we're converting it into charcoal. So you can kind of look and see what's the sum of these two. So this is going down at a pretty shallow angle. This is a very steep angle. So that means we're converting this into charcoal. But if you add these two together, it goes up here. You just want to make sure that this trend is either going up or that you have enough supply to not go to 0 before you can put some people working on there and gather more firewood. So hopefully that made sense. But yeah, let's get back to building all these buildings, and then we'll talk about how to set that up. Here we go. And you can see we just sold 30 regional wealth worth of stuff. So we were at 30 before, we're now at 60. And if we go over here to our trade tab, and you can see we sold 15 for 30 gold. So that's exactly what happened. Perfect. And it even gives you the transaction list. So foreign trader. So those are the guys that, as I said, the ones that just passively roam around the map. So somebody came by and bought 5, and then our worker went to the edge of the map and sold 5. 10 and 5. So there's the 15. Now, real quick, let's talk about something that I was planning on doing this later in the guide, but actually I think it needs to be done a lot sooner. I made a mistake on this one. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the checklist. It's going to show up earlier. So if you're watching this video and you're following it step by step, I apologize. If you're following the checklist, you'll notice something missing. So we want to pick our village origins from the development tab, and you can find that by clicking on, make sure you're over your starting region, and then you can see the region name right here. Click on that, and then the development tab is up here in the top left. We want to click on origins right here. Now there's 9 of them. There's a lot of information in here. Don't get lost. I'm going to tell you exactly which one to pick. It's the one in the middle left. So this is Regensburg Guildsman. And the reason we want to pick this is because the bonus is really strong. Increased regional wealth from burgage plots. So every burgage plot that we own gives us +1 wealth per month. So if we have 10 burgage plots, we're going to get 10 free gold. Even if we don't sell anything, we get free money essentially. So this is super important. I think, especially as a beginner, it really makes a big difference. And if you're an expert player, this could be really good if you just spam a bunch of low tier houses. You can make a lot of money doing this. It also makes your burgage plot upgrades cheaper. So as I mentioned before, if you want to upgrade one to tier 2, it takes 2 planks, and I think it was like 2 timber and 8 planks, something like that. This basically cuts that in half. If there's a wealth cost to upgrade, it basically removes that. So going from tier 2 to tier 3, I think it's 25 regional wealth to do it. So this makes it free. Also very important, in my opinion, it reduces the ore import cost by 30%. Now, if you don't have a rich source of iron, you will have to import your iron. Either you have to take over a region that has a rich resource like this and then trade it to yourself, or you have to import it from the AI. Now, this alone is not why we're picking the perk. It's usually this one, I would say, is the most important one, increased regional wealth for burgage plots. So this perk by itself can basically, you can ignore everything else. But this is a little bonus. Reducing salt and iron ore import is a little bonus. And then the only downside is your land tax approval takes a bit of a hit. I wouldn't worry about that. It's not really that big of a hit. So essentially, when you start taxing your people, they will like it more than if you didn't have the perk. But like I said, it's not a big deal. It's never been an issue in the runs that I've done. So the downside is basically nothing, and the upside is very, very, very good. So we're going to go ahead and pick Regensburg Guildsman, and then the button right here, click unlock, confirm it. And then now every month that passes, for every burgage plot that we have, we will get some wealth for that. And then we'll use that wealth to upgrade our burgage plots. We could use it to import other materials that we need. There's a lot of things that we can use the wealth for. So like I said, it's going to show up a little earlier in the list. It's going to be under the place starting buildings at the very end of that section. But if you're following along and you missed it, you basically just missed out on a couple months worth of money. So I don't know, 60 or 70 wealth. Not that big of a deal. It's not going to ruin the run. But yeah, I decided to put that a little sooner in the guide. So let me go ahead and fix that. Now, as we start to construct these buildings, I'm putting laborers on. So I want to get the stone gathering camp first. So we'll just use that one. We could also get the iron. That's probably a pretty important one as well, but that's not built yet. So we'll just start to collect things. And oh, we just had some resources stolen by bandits. They took our food, which is the worst thing they can steal. Yeah, that's the one thing we can't replace at this point. So that's going to happen as you get bandits on the map. They will start to take your stuff. So we need to go clear that out, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. I don't think it's the right time yet though. Let's finish building our buildings. And then during the winter time is usually when I do it because there's not as much work to be done. So let's finish building these and then we'll talk what to do next. Now, another thing we're going to want to do as soon as that farmhouse is done is click on it. And then you see there's an upgrade here, the plowing station. It's only 1 timber, so it's very cheap. We need this if we want to be able to assign oxen. You can see we don't even have a tab for animals. But once we add that, we will be able to add the oxen to the building. And then what we want to do is move these hitching posts close by. So it's easier for the ox, or I guess in this case, if we use both oxen, we'll be able to get to the fields quicker. So we'll move them right behind this farmhouse. And then our farming is pretty much ready. We just need to set up the fields and then wait for better weather. Now you'll notice I've got 4 workers on this stone camp. I'm doing this one because it's close and it's easy. We'll just clear it off the map before winter time. Your priority should probably be on the iron though. The iron I think is a bit more important because then we can produce more weapons. But this one's easy to get. So I'm just going to do this one first. And then let's go ahead, because we have 1 worker available still. I'm going to go ahead and do this one. So this is for clay. And again, I don't want to destroy any of the trees, so I'm just going to build around it. So now keep an eye out on these resources. Once this hits 0, we're going to pull all the workers out and we're going to move them back to the next one, the next building. And actually I have some spare laborers here, so I'm going to start putting families on it anyways. But yeah, keep an eye on this. We're at 20. Once it gets to 0, we'll pull everybody out. Now, because we have our Regensburg guildsmen and we are selling some items here on the trading post, there's a couple things we need to do. You can see our food is dangerously close to not being able to satisfy our needs. Even if we had a bunch of food, we would probably still want to do this anyways. But we want to upgrade these burgage plots so that they're producing food for us. So we can come in here. So you click on the burgage plot and then the construct backyard extension, and there's a couple options. We could get animal pens. We can get a chicken coop. We don't need the apiary yet, but we will need those soon. And we can't take advantage of vegetable gardens or orchards during the wintertime. So we don't want to plant those just yet. I would say go for the meat first, either chicken coops or the animal pens. Now, in this case, well, let's talk about one more aspect of the game that we didn't really talk about, and that is environment. So if we go to that same screen we went to before for the development, so at the top, click on the name of your town, and then go to the second tab in the middle, which is environment. You can see here, this one tells us what our meadows. There's basically 5, I don't know what you call these environments, 5 environments in your specific area. So meadows, this determines what your pollination and your wilding is. So pollination helps your crops produce a higher yield, your orchards and your vegetable gardens. So these are very important for all these. Wilding is for apiaries, depending on it'll determine on how fast those grow, and then you can sell the byproducts. If you go to woodlands, this is one we have a lot of because this specific region has a ton of woods. Now, pannage determines how quickly you can harvest your pigs if you build the pigs in the backyard. So when you're trying to figure out what you should build, you should look at your environment and see, okay, what one takes advantage of that. So if we go to this one, it doesn't say right here, but just know chickens don't take into any environment into the account, and goats don't use any of the environment, only pigs. But pigs are determined by pannage right here. So we have a very high number of pannage, which means we can basically get a lot more pigs than we can chickens or goats because we have literally a ton of trees in the area. So it's better to build pigs. And so what we're going to do is go through here and upgrade all these. And this one right now, it only costs the planks, but once we get that built, we will have to spend money to actually get the pigs in. So let's get that upgraded and we'll see how much. I believe it's going to cost us 22 for each one. So we can get 4, 5 of them, almost 6 maybe. Here we go. So one of them is upgraded. So you can see you get the option to buy goats or pigs. Now goats do not have any, as I mentioned, it doesn't matter what the map has, they always produce the same. Pigs will give you a stronger yield of pork if you have more pannage, which we have 71%. It's a very high number, so we're going to go with pigs. And you can see that takes some money from our regional wealth, but we will also start to get food for that. So not only do we have food for wild animals, which is year-round, but we also are getting our backyard extensions, which is year-round as well. So let's get pigs in all of these as long as we have cash for it. There we go. So we got 4. And we got 2 more. We'll have plenty of food, I think, for the wintertime. And we could probably continue to grow our population here even more than what we were planning on doing, I think. But I'm going to let a month go by to make sure that our food is actually coming in from that. But we'll talk about how that works. Here we go. And zooming in, we can see there's 3 stone left. They should be cleaning this out very soon. Here we go. Last person. And the stone is completely gone. Now, we don't need this building anymore, but I would wait until all the stuff inside it's gone before you deconstruct it. So let's pull all the workers though. And our warehouse workers are going to come grab that last bit. And once that's done, there's a button up here called demolish. So we want to destroy this building once our generic storage is empty, and we'll get the resources back that we used to build it. Now we want to relocate these workers to one of these other areas. So the mining pit, let's go and put them back on. And then we could even put a couple on this mining pit, the clay pit over here. So let's work on that. Now I'm going to build 2 more houses directly across the street from our storehouse because I want to build some manufacturing. We're going to need some artisans. So we will have to upgrade to Burgage Plot 2 for these. We're also going to need some support. So if we are collecting both iron and we're collecting clay, then we need to be able to process that. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out the infrastructure. We won't do it just yet necessarily, but we want to get the buildings done so that they're ready to go. So we need right here, a clay furnace, and this is all going to be under the industry tab. So clay furnace, a bloomery, get that. So those 2 buildings. Okay, so this stone gathering camp is completely empty. There's no reason to keep it around, so I'm going to demolish it. And you can see it spits back out the timber that we used, so that'll get recycled. There's literally no loss to building a building. If you deconstruct it, you get everything back that you put into it. So we'll do the same thing for these once these are emptied out, but these take a little bit longer. So let's get that. We need to get the iron ore out. You can see they're starting to collect it. We should see clay showing up here pretty soon as well. Now that also brings up another point. It looks like we don't have any more firewood here. We have 211 charcoal, which gives us 17 months. We can actually pull this worker off and have him do something else, or we can have him collect more wood if you're concerned that you're going to freeze to death. 17 months, we have plenty of time to react, so I probably wouldn't worry about that too much. I would rather have him help building buildings, maybe gathering stuff out of the mines. So we have 3 on there, 2 on there. Let's go ahead and put 1 more on the clay. All right, wintertime has officially hit. So as I mentioned, we kind of did some of the winter work during the non-winter months, but it's fine. Autumn and winter are kind of the same thing in your first year because you don't have any farming going on. But once you transition into the wintertime, this is usually when you can mass produce things that you can't do during the growing season because all your labor, you're kind of shifting your labor from, say, organic stuff like, gathering food from the resource nodes, or you're gathering food from farming and planting crops and all that. And then once wintertime rolls around, all that stuff shuts up and you have to do something else. So then I would transfer to the non-organic. So for example, iron, processing clay, gathering more wood and firewood, converting those resources into other things. So for example, the bloomery, we're going to convert iron ore into iron slabs so that we can make weapons with it and all these other things. In the early game especially, it's a dance of transferring your labor around where they're needed. And then as you get into the mid and late game, you can automate this and you can be a little bit more inefficient and just leave people on there all the time so that you can do other things. But like I said, right now we have to shift labor back and forth a little bit. So let's get the rest of these buildings built. We still have only 1 unassigned family, so we can't really do a whole lot with them, but we are getting all the resources out of the ground here that we can, and then we'll start processing it. These 2 burgage plots, the extra ones that I built, are here. Let's talk about upgrading them. So in order to get these other extensions, we do need to upgrade them. So let's go upgrade to burgage plot level 2. It's only going to cost 1 timber and 4 planks because we have that Regensburg guild perk that cuts this cost in half. So let's upgrade that. The other thing that's nice about this, at level 2, let's just assume we're not taking into consideration the perk here that gives us an extra wealth for burgage plots. So level 1 burgage plots do not give you any money. Level 2 gives you 1 wealth per family, and level 3 gives you 2 wealth per family. By adding this perk, you can add a +1 to every single one of those. So level 1 gives you 1 wealth, level 2 gives you 2 wealth, and level 3 gives you 3 wealth per month. So it's really good upgrading all your buildings that you can, but you have to be careful if you upgrade them too fast and you don't have the stuff to support them because they want ale, they want extra food, they want clothing, they want all this stuff. If you upgrade a bunch of people and you don't have the support, you'll actually piss them off and then people start leaving your town. So be careful with upgrading it. In the early game, not really that big of a deal if you just upgrade a couple of them. But if you upgrade everybody and you don't have anything to help them to make them happy, then they will get pissed off. But anyways, the whole point of that is you will make more money by upgrading your people to burgage plot level 2 and then even more at level 3. All right, let's talk about artisan workshops. So I've upgraded these 2 burgage plots to level 2. I'm going to go ahead and do a blacksmith first. So blacksmith shop, you can see it does cost us money. So 25 regional wealth. We do have plenty of money saved up because of that perk, and we're selling some items. So I'm going to go ahead and do this blacksmith workshop. And then this one needs to be a joiner's workshop, but we can do that one later. Let's not do that right away. There we go. Now don't forget, as soon as the blacksmith's done, I would pause the game and go to your advanced tab. This is very important because if you forget to do this, you're going to use up a lot of materials and produce way more goods than you really need. So right now we currently have 20 spears and 20 large shields. We want to have up to 36 per militia regiment that we want to assign. So, but in the early game, you don't want to go through too many materials. So what I'm going to recommend is turn on your production limit, put that down to 10. I think 10 is probably more than enough. And then go over to your tools tab. And this one, you could probably go a little higher, maybe 20, because tools are needed for a lot of buildings. So if we click on, say like our bloomery, you can see we need 3 tools per year to keep this workshop functioning properly. It's fully maintained. We're not getting any debuffs to our labor speed. Once we run out of tools, you'll see that your production goes down drastically, and I believe there's a chance they get injured or something like that. A lot of other buildings require tools as well, so our logging camp requires tools. The workshop, I thought these ones, yeah, see the blacksmith requires tools as well. So we want to produce tools first before we produce any kind of weapons, and we'll save up to 20 of them. We may not have enough iron slabs to do it yet. You can see I put somebody on the bloomery here so that we can start converting this iron into slabs, and then we can start producing tools. Because if we run out, like I said, it's not going to be good for all of our people. Now, we're not going to have a ton of iron to do this. So once we run through all of our iron, we've produced our weapons and our tools. We should be fine. But in the future, if we need more, then we need to come over here to the trade tab. And then we can go to the crafting materials. We can import iron ore. So you would switch this to import. And I would probably leave it on something low, like maybe 10 to 20. If you import too much, it's going to be extremely expensive. Oh, what happened here? Hold on. That's not right. Yeah, okay, that perk is broken then. I didn't realize that. So if we go to our Regensburg thing, salt and iron import value is supposed to be minus 30. It should be 30% less than 11, so it should be somewhere around like 8 or 7 or 8. It's definitely not. That's unfortunate. Okay, so that doesn't work. What about salt? Did they do salt? Looks like it's a little cheaper. But yeah, iron is unchanged. But anyways, we don't need to import it just yet because we have like 117 that we started with. So we'll use up all that and then we can turn the import on. And then we should have more money by then anyways. So that should be good. We still have money to upgrade these burgage plots. So why don't we add some more pigs just to make sure that we don't run out of food here in the wintertime. And if we click on our burgage plots that have pigs, you can see, hover your mouse over, you can see we've collected 2 meat from this burgage plot. On the general tab, this one, 2 meat. So it's not a lot, but it adds up if you get a bunch of these things producing meat. So there we go. And then if we look at our blacksmith on the general tab, I'm really, really glad they added this. You can actually see what they're producing. So if we look at the general tab, yield modest. So this blacksmith has produced 5 tools in the last 30 days. So now we can see that he's actually working. You can see how much he's done. And then if we look at the tools maintenance, looks like none of them have made it into storage yet. So once that goes up, we want to see that number rise up to the limit we set here. So once he hits 20, then he should stop producing. And then we just switch it back to spears so that we can produce more spears. All right, here we go. We've produced a lot of tools. For some reason, they're not picking it up fast enough, so it's not showing up in the maintenance, in the right here in the construction tab. But needless to say, we've got 10 here. We've got 18 here. He doesn't need to produce anymore. Let's go ahead and switch this over to our spears. So on the advanced tab, we click over to spears, make sure your production limit has been set to 10. We're good there. Let's upgrade this to the joiner's workshop. So this is the one that produces shields. So you need a blacksmith and a joiner to be able to produce more weapons for your the melee troops. If you want to do range, then you would need to do the bowyer's workshop. We'll keep it simple. This one, we're just going to do spear infantry. So joiner's workshop, we'll set a limit on that of 10 for the large shields, and then we'll start producing, and then we'll have to go deal with that. We've got a bandit raid coming in 18 days. We're not going to get too much more than what we already have, unfortunately. Yeah, let's set this to 10 large shields. So we'll produce as many as we can here before the raid starts. And then we need to get our troops ready. So if we click on the army tab at the bottom, click this plus sign, and then go over to your spear militia, go ahead and click that up. And then you'll see we have enough people for 30, but we only have equipment for 20. So we need to start producing more equipment. And I realized they weren't producing because we had 20 in storage, which is higher than the 10 that we had. That's why we weren't producing. Whoops. So yeah, go ahead and start that militia group as soon as you can. Here we go. The raid is starting. So once that happens, just pause, and then you'll see up here, there's a little plus symbol at the top right below this generic for storage full. So if you hover your mouse over that, you can see all the events that happened. And you see enemy unit spotted. So click on that and it'll show you exactly where they are. And if we zoom out, you can see they spawn just south of us, southwest. So we have maybe like half a month before they get to us. So let's go ahead and speed it up. Hopefully we can build a few more items here and get some more troops. Yeah, so we've got 23 now. If we can get a few more before we summon them, I would be much happier. 24, that's pretty good. Okay, so yeah, they're going to be here any second. So go ahead and pause it. Open up your army tab and then click on your spear militia. And then this button on the left, this rally button, go ahead and click on that and then summon them somewhere near the front line. So if they're coming from here, we're going to summon them right here in this open area. And then you can see they sprint all the way out and start getting ready. Here they are. They're starting to raid. So what I recommend in this case is put your units. So select your units. You can either click on the picture or you can select them on the map. Click stand ground. That's going to put them in a defensive position. So their defense is doubled, but they attack half as often, but that's fine. I would rather them have higher defense than not. And then we can put them in a shield wall position. That makes them slower, but they fight as a one cohesive unit. So it's a really good formation. I think it's underutilized by a lot of people. So we'll shield wall defensive, let them come to us here. And then as soon as they hit, we want to switch over to push forward. And then you could see they'll start pushing them back. And all of our guys are getting in and start stabbing them. These guys in the back, I don't know why they're not attacking. But anyways, we shouldn't take any losses here. Yeah, no losses. We're at 25 still. We can turn our shield wall off so that we can move faster and maybe put them back on stand ground. Now we've got a couple options here. We could go out since our troops are already out, we can go and clear out these bandit camps, or we can get back to work and start doing some of the other things we need to prepare for, like getting our crops in the ground. I think it's probably best to do that later in the year, but let's talk about how to clean up afterwards, after the battle. So we're going to disband our units. So if you click on your units, you have to make sure they're inside your territory. If we were in somebody else's territory or a territory where they weren't summoned from, you cannot disband. This thing will be grayed out. But once you're in your own territory, you can disband them from here. And then we need to build a corpse pit. And that is under the residential. All the way on the right, there's a corpse pit. All the dead bodies are right here. So we're going to build one right here, assign a few people to work it, and then we'll throw all the bodies in here so that we don't get a big debuff for, having a bunch of dead bodies around. Also, let's pull all of our workers from these mining pits. We don't need them here. We can do that again when there's nothing else to do. So iron is down to 38, clay is down to 39. So we've got 70% of the resources out. But now we want our laborers back so we can put them to work. You can see here the mushrooms are starting to grow again. So let's put a worker back on the forger hut. First priority is getting this corpse pit down and getting all these bodies tucked away so they don't cause us any issues with approval loss. There we go. And then once it's done, pull the workers off and just delete it. You can build them. They're free. They don't cost you anything. Just a little bit of labor. You can build them wherever you want. I usually build them wherever the battle took place. And then that makes the labor a lot easier because then they don't have to travel to bring the bodies. They're literally on top of the corpse pit. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're starting year 2. I'm going to end phase 1 and move on to phase 2 next. So starting phase 2, a couple things to reiterate. Once you start your new year, and the year doesn't start, it starts in March technically, not January, because that's when all the important labor shifts happen. So starting in March, we want to make sure that we have workers on our our seasonal food sources. So in our case, it's mushrooms, but if you have berries, that's berries. Same thing with fish. So you want to put people back on that. You want to pull people off of the mining pits, or if you're collecting stone, pull everybody off of those and focus back on 2 things, food and firewood. In this case, we still have 11 months of supply, but I still put people back on the woodcutter and the charcoal kiln. We'll do that for maybe a month or 2. And that should push us back up to, 15 to 20 months of supply. Now, we're still going to have some labor here available. So 3, we could do a couple things. I think the most important thing is to get our farming ready. We're not going to get a full harvest if we plant in March, but we'll at least get a decent harvest, like maybe half. So I do want to get at least something done. So what I'm going to do is put whatever families I have available, I'm going to throw on the farmhouse up here, and then let's go ahead and start setting up our fields. So under the farming tab on the left is fields. And what we want to do is get burgage plots that are about half a morgan big. Now, you do these the same as the marketplace and burgage plots. Usually, because we have the roads, it's easy to click on the corner, go to the other corner, drag it out till you get like a square, and then you can kind of jimmy it around a little bit to see until you get a 0.5 morgan. So I could see right here it's 0.4. If I make it a little bigger, 0.5. You could also adjust this side to make it bigger if you want it like that. I think this is more even, so we'll go like this. So 0.5 morgan. Oh, what happened here? There we go, 0.5. We're going to construct it. Do this 3 times. Once you have 3 fields that are about 0.5 morgan each, then you can pause. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a 0.5 out of this. This is too small. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is build this 0.2 and let's get another 0.3 over here so that it's roughly equal. Yeah, there we go, 0.3. So the reason we want to do 0.5 morgans is because that's a good field size to allow your oxen to go plow it, but still have plenty of stuff for your laborers to do. It'll make sense as we start to go through. It's also easier to keep track of what you've already put in the ground. So for example, this field, we need to set up all of our fields, and we're going to go for automated right from the start. And just kind of follow the directions and it should make a bit more sense. So first thing you do is click on the fields one at a time. So click, and then you have to physically move the field. So you'll notice right now, if I click, you can pin the tab if you don't want it to go away if I click off. Like let's say if I click on this one and I click on another field, it just goes away. We don't want that. We want all the fields to stay on. So you could either click this pin, or what I like to do is just click, move it up to the corner, click on the next field, move it to the corner, and that automatically pins it. We don't want these fields to go away. So here we go. We have half a morgan here. We have a half a morgan here. We have 0.2 and 0.3. So these two are technically 1. We're going to copy basically word for word whatever the order is. So we need to set up our crop rotation. We'll do that by clicking this one right here, right underneath. Let's do that for all of our fields. Now we need to choose what crops need to be produced. So in this area, we want a couple things. We want food and we want flax. We could do barley. So there you have two options. You could either do wheat, barley, and flax, or what I'm going to recommend, if it's less than 80%, you probably want to go for wheat, rye, and flax. And the reason being is I've done it the other way where I produced wheat, barley, and flax on every single field I had on the map. And it's a little bit less efficient and you end up with a lot, like way too much barley, way too much flax, and not enough food. So I think this is probably a better alternative. So you have wheat and rye, this 2 years of food and 1 year of flax. And the reason we do it in groups of 3 is because we always want to make sure we have at least 1 flax, 1 wheat, and 1 rye in each year. So, and then don't forget, because this one, these were 2 cut in half. This is a 0.2 and 0.3. This is technically 1 field, right? 0.5. So we're just going to do the same. We're going to copy and paste. So we have flax. We don't have flax in the middle. So we're going to do flax in the middle here. And then we have wheat on the top, wheat in the middle. We need wheat on the bottom now. So wheat, and then the last one is rye. So essentially what's going to happen is in year 1, we're going to have 1 field that has wheat, 1 field that has flax, and then these 2 fields have rye. The next year, we're going to get rye, wheat, flax. And then the third year, we're going to get flax, rye, wheat. So every single year, we're getting equal portions of wheat, rye, and flax. Hopefully that makes sense. And the reason you do this is because when you set up your industry to process all of this stuff, if you have predictable amounts of resources coming in every single year, your labor is going to be more efficiently utilized. Let's say, what if we had all of our fields doing the exact same thing? If we did all wheat year 1, all flax year 2, and all rye year 3. Then you would have 2 years where you don't get a single drop of wheat. You have 2 years where you don't get a single drop of flax, and 2 years where you don't get any kind of rye. And that means that those people that are working the industries that are processing those will have absolutely nothing to do for 2 years. And in that third year, they're going to have to work really, really hard to get all that stuff processed all at once. So instead, it's better to smooth that curve out so that you get a little bit of each every single year. So do them in groups of 3. Rotate, and then do it like this: 2 food, 1 flax, 2 food, 1 barley for the barley area. And then you just rotate it like that. So we'll start with this. We probably can do more. So actually, let's go ahead and get up another set of 3 if we can. So I'm going to do them over here. So again, we're going to draw it out until we can get 0.5 Morgan. Why don't you like this? It doesn't like this point over here. So what I'm going to do is do it manually. Yeah, sometimes the snapping is a little finicky. So just turn it off if it does that to you. 0.4, we need to make this a little bigger. And then finally, this one is 0.3. It's not quite enough, unfortunately. So maybe we do a small one. We don't want to use up the barley because that's a different field type. So why don't we do this? Let's get a little one. So this was what, 0.3? Double check that one more time. Yeah, 0.3. I'm going to make a 0.2 field right next to it over here. And then so these two will be the same thing. So again, pull all your fields up, get them lined up. Oh, you know what? Actually, yep, these two. There we go. Crop rotate. And it doesn't matter what order you do because it's all going to rotate evenly anyways. You just want to make sure you have wheat, 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 and then flax, flax, rye, rye, rye. There we go. So you can always double check it, make sure you have 1 in each year, and that looks like it matches, so we're perfect. Now, if you zoom out and you hold tab, again, I said tab is such an important button to be able to use. So hold tab, you can see all this stuff distributed. So we have wheat, flax, and barley, or sorry, rye, flax, rye, and wheat. And then, like I said, these two are basically 0.5, so a little separated there, but no problem. Now, anybody working here is going to go out and plow it by hand unless we assign livestock to it. So if we go over here to the livestock tab, click this plus sign twice because we have 2 oxen. Now, when you reserve them, that means they are not able to go out and pull logs to the logging camp. They're not able to pull logs to the saw pit, and they're not able to build buildings, right? They can't actually go because they're assigned to do this. So what you would need to do to counter that is either build more hitching posts and order oxen, or just put all that stuff on hold, do your farming, and once you're done farming, you can unassign these guys, and then they'll go back to doing their other jobs. So right now we're just going to leave it like this. Let's put all 3 of our laborers up here. We don't need anybody to do anything else, right? We're not building anything. We don't really need to process stuff other than maybe a little bit more of this iron slabs. Actually, we can probably pull him off soon. Why don't we do that? Let's pull him off, throw him at the farm, because we need to get this stuff in the ground as fast as possible because time is ticking on growth. So let's go and do that. And you can see what'll happen is they grab the oxen. Where are you, oxen? Here we go. They grab the oxen from their previous job and they're coming over here. Now the ox will plow faster than a human, but a human cannot be on the same field that an ox is plowing. So that's why you want to have a bunch of small fields. If you have like 1 or 2 huge fields, then what ends up happening is the ox will hog the field and nobody can plant while they're doing their other jobs. So it's better to have a lot of smaller fields. You don't want them too small. You want to have them at a decent size, like 0.5 to 1.0, I think is reasonable. And then they'll continue to do their job like this. So they won't step on each other's toes. Now, once the field is plowed, you can see here, there's a meter that fills up as we're plowing. This plow meter goes up. As they're seeding, once it's plowed, then they need to seed it. You can see sowing progress. So they're going to seed them. And then once they're seeded, they need a year to grow to 100%. And then you'll have a full harvest. So there we go. April, we'll have everything done before the end of April. We could even put more in the ground, but we'll probably wait until we get more food. Right now, we're still just barely hanging on with 3 months of supply. I'm not sure why that is. We should have people. Oh, these people are sick. That's why they're not actually working. Yeah, nobody's actually grabbing the mushrooms because they're sick. Sometimes people get sick. It's RNG, so unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the bandits are stealing our food. That's really bad. So we probably need to stop for a moment and go kill the bandits. So we're just going to wait until the end of these guys plowing and planting, and then we'll pull everybody off, and we'll need to move them back on in September. September is harvesting season. Very, very important. Probably the most important month in the game. So there we go. You'll know everything's done. If you hold tab, you'll start to see these numbers. There won't be any percentage signs. They'll turn into hard numbers. If we click on the field, you could see harvest. There's a harvest coming in 136 days. We're going to get 54 flax from this field. We'll get 9 wheat, 8 wheat, 31 rye, 29 flax, 18, and so on and so forth. So we're going to get some pretty good yields from this, but we need to make sure that we can handle everything here. So, well, you know what? We've got a lot of things to do between now and harvest, though. So let's go ahead and pull everybody off, get the livestock out of there so they can go back and do something more useful. And then we need to figure out what the next step is. Now, a couple things we can do here to make sure that we're still getting food. So you can see our regional wealth is up to 70. We're going to continue to add pigsties. We need to keep doing that. So let's upgrade animal pen, get all these other ones out in the middle of nowhere, make sure that they have the animal pens as well. You can see here, this one is now up to 6. Yeah, it looks like 6 pork in the last year. 6 pork. They haven't had a full year with it, so that's fine. This should be probably close to 14 or 15 food per year per plot. And then what do we have on this one? 82 in 365 days. So this is producing a massive amount of meat, actually. But it's not enough on its own. You need a bunch of little ones like this to make up the difference. So you can see we still only have 3 months of food. But I think part of the reason is because this family's sick. So let's put a second family on there. Hopefully we get people that aren't sick, and then they can start collecting that. Now, there's a couple things that we should be doing here at this point. We still have bandit camps that need to be cleared out, so we could summon our army again. You can see they're up to 30 now, so we were able to successfully get all those weapons made. We just need more population to be able to fill the rest of that out to 36, but we don't have a whole lot of food, so I wouldn't recommend that. So like I said, it's a balancing act. I would say the most important priority is making sure that our food is in order. So we could start produce some other things. There's, as I mentioned in the backyard extensions, you can make fruit or you can make vegetables. I think in the early game, vegetables are a little bit more practical. They're cheaper. They produce more per square of, or per morgan of land that you need. So why don't we get something set up for that? Now we don't want to use, they take up a lot of space. So you want to make sure you put it in a spot that's not going to be taking up your flax or barley. So we're saving this for barley. Flax. What about down here? So there's barley. There's a little bit of flax right here. No barley here. So this could actually be a really good spot for it right in this chunk. So what we're going to do is map out how we want our burgage plot to look. So we can use roads to kind of map it out. So you can see right here, this is the basic size of a duplex that we need. So I'm going to build this temporarily and then we'll delete it. And the reason we're doing this is because I want to get a road here to tell us exactly how big we need it to be. So it should go up to right about right here, something like that. Now we can delete it. Now if we want to leave the snapping points on, you can see we can very easily get that same shape. Oh, it's going to give us a weird little kink. No, that's okay. So it's still there. Okay, so that's good. Now the problem is, if we were to build like a normal looking burgage plot like this, we're going to get this long skinny area where you can see the average planning cost is plus 100%. That's not very much. So we could make it bigger. We can make it really, really long like this. Now it goes up to 360. The problem is The people have to go from their house all the way back here to collect the resources and then go all the way back to the house to drop it off. They do that one at a time. So if you have people going way back here, it's going to take them forever. It's not an efficient setup for these types of things. So what I would recommend doing is, instead of making it like that, you want to make it kind of like a blob. And you can do it more efficiently if you map it out, kind of like whatever shape you want it to be. Actually, you know what? We should probably make this a little bit deeper in case we want to build. We could probably build some more housing right here. So we'll make sure that we have enough room to get the extension, the backyard burgage plot extensions. Yeah, so I'm not going to build these. I'm just temporarily having them there so that we don't accidentally delete it. So let's go ahead and delete these like that. And then what we can do is we can make this like a big square, something like that. And I think you probably want to target in the 300 to 400 range for how big you want this extension to be. So if we click right here, you see average planning cost plus 370. That's a pretty good number. I would say you could maybe even go bigger than that, to be honest, but I would say at least get to 300. Anything over 300, you're going to be doing okay. So let's go ahead and build it like that. I'm going to delete all these roads because it looks kind of ugly and we don't need them. They don't really function anything other than to help shape the burgage plots. And I also don't have enough food to support these other ones, but I just wanted to make sure we had the infrastructure ready. Now in the future, when we want to utilize this space more efficiently, we already have a structure set up for it. So we can just match it like that. We've got burgage plot extensions in the back. And now instead of having, this weird funky long shape that's not efficient, we have a square where they can get to the veggies and bring it back very quickly, but we're also utilizing the space in the front to get more burgage plots. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, get at least one of these, and then this will be for veggies. We need to make sure we save up money though. It's going to cost us a couple hundred. So we'll probably start saving up for that. All right, so we've got food coming in. We also need some ability to convert this food into other things. So the wheat and the rye needs a bakery, but we also need a windmill to process all that. So let's go to farming. We'll get a windmill going. I'm just going to build it over here. You can create specific areas where you do all this. Actually, you know what? Yeah, what I'm going to do is the granary is where all that food stuff is going to get dropped off and collected rather. So what we need to do is build the granary or the windmill. We don't want it to be too close to it because then it blocks the ability for us to make our burgage plot where the bakery is going to be. So let's go and build another burgage plot over here. And we want it to be a single, so let's not make it too thick. Actually, you know what? Can we do it this way? Yeah, unfortunately, this is not wide enough to get a burgage plot that way, unfortunately. So that's fine. We'll do it this way. Okay, here we go. So burgage plot with an extension in the back. This is going to be our baker. So the regular wheat and the rye wheat are going to come in to the granary. Granary is going to send it to the windmill. They'll turn it into flour, back to the granary, and then back here. I had mentioned before having a chain where, your wood cutter goes to the charcoal kiln and then the charcoal kiln to the large storehouse. You can do something similar here, but you got to be careful because when you get a harvest, it's the entire year all in 1 month. So it's a massive, massive undertaking. So I would probably rely on the granary to collect it and then produce your stuff around the granary rather than putting your windmill over here and then getting it directly from them and then shipping it off. You could do it that way too. I just find that the granary is pretty easy to use for that just because of the hand carts help a lot. So I'm going to do it like this, but you could set it up both ways. Both ways are perfectly fine. I just think it's a little bit easier, especially for a beginner, just to build your industry around your storehouses that you already have in place. Also, I would like to upgrade this. We need more planks. And then the other thing we need is to be able to process the flax. So if we come here to our industry tab, you can see a weaver's workshop. We're going to throw that down right over here. And then they will grab the flax from the storehouse. And then we need to put another burgage plot over here. Actually, do we have... What I'm going to do is wait. I'm going to put it a little closer to the storehouse. I'm going to put it right here. This bloomery is going to get deconstructed anyways, and we'll build it somewhere else. We just have a little bit more iron to process before we can get rid of it. Yeah, there's 20 in there and then 30 something in here, 38. So we'll do it later. But yeah, essentially, actually, yeah, let me just do it now so I don't forget. We need to have another burgage plot that acts as a tailor. And we might as well just put them next to it. There we go. So this will get upgraded to a tier 2 and then to a tailor. I would recommend waiting until you have all the crops off the field to turn these into their respective. So like this burgage plot needs to go to tier 2 and then you do a bakery. Wait until you have your first harvest completely done and then turn them over because you could use that labor for an extra month. So just a quick recap. We put a burgage plot for food. This is going to be for vegetables. We're going to have another area right here with a windmill and another burgage plot for a bakery. That'll allow us to process both the wheat and the rye. Then we have a weaver's workshop and another burgage plot that's going to be a tailor to handle all of the flax that's coming off of this. So basically, we're ready for harvest once all this stuff is down and upgraded. So let's let a little bit of time go, and then we'll get back to it. There you go. Everything is down. So we have our windmill, burgage plot, weaver, burgage plot. We're just building this one over here. Like I said, we won't be able to place this down right away because the amount of regional wealth that you need, but we'll get there soon. All right, here we go. And once this is done, let's talk about the duplex. So this burgage plot that's going to handle all of our vegetable gardens. This can handle 2 families. I know we kind of briefly mentioned it, but the way you upgrade it to a 2-family is there's a button right here, construction expansion. This will allow a second family to move in. So I'm going to do that right now. We'll get 2 families in. We have 5 months of food supply. So our food supply is actually going up. It was 3 months a little bit before, and now you can see it's actually going. Oh, what happened? Our hunter is not getting that number down. So let's put that might be a fluke. I'm not sure why. Usually 1 hunter is enough to keep this herd down quite a bit. Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. We don't want this to be full ever. We want it to be a little bit less. Yeah, see, it's at 24 now. That's not good. Maybe they're sick or something? Yeah, they're sick. Oh boy. Everybody's getting sick now. So let's put a second family on there. That's exactly what was causing that issue. So there we go. They're not sick anymore. We'll pull them back off. They'll start hunting them again. But I'm not going to do it now. But if you want to stop people from getting sick, you can either import medicine or you can go to your forager hut and construct a herb garden. So this produces herbs. I don't know how much it produces every year, but you can get a slow trickle of that, and then that'll help people get better when they're sick. But like I said, I'm not going to do it this one. It's not usually that big of an issue. Or you can just import it. If you come over here to your crafting menu, they cost 12 each, so it's kind of pricey. I don't think it's really worth it. You're probably better off just getting your own from your forager huts. Let's go ahead and upgrade to the vegetable garden, and then we'll have to pay for the seeds. Let's see how much it actually costs. It's probably going to be in the 200 to 300 range, is my guess. So pretty pricey. Upgraded, and yeah, so you have 3 options in here. You can produce beetroots, carrots, or cabbage. The difference between these is the growing cycle is shorter for these and the yield is lower. And as you get more expensive, the yield is higher, but the growth cycle is longer. So what this basically means is if you go beetroots, you're going to get less, but you will grow them faster. So essentially, you're going to have to put more labor in to get the same amount of food out of the burgage plots. If you have the money, I would recommend always saving up for the expensive one because you're going to get a massive increase in production out of that. You're going to have less labor to get that production out as well. Like I said, they'll have to do almost twice as much work to get the food out versus doing it once and getting a high yield out of the cabbage when you compare the beetroots versus the cabbages. Now, there is a reason to get more than one type, but that doesn't really apply until you get all of your town upgraded to burgage plot level 3, because you will need 2 different types of food or 3 different types of these foods for this one first category. So you could potentially maybe do a lower tier, like a mid tier now, and then maybe do a cabbage in next year so that you can have 2 different types. That could be an option. I would say just save up for the cabbages if you can, though. We're not that far off. We're about halfway there. Yeah, about a third of the way there, actually. But that's okay. We'll have other things to sell in the meantime as well, especially once we collect our crops and then we start to process that, and then we can sell the gambeson. And don't forget to upgrade these burgage plots. They're going to be turned into the baker and the tailor. So this one's going to level 2. I don't have anybody living there yet. You cannot upgrade a burgage plot until somebody's living there. So wait until this one, somebody's inhabiting it, and then we can upgrade it. And then I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think we're pretty much past the early game. Let's go ahead and at our saw pit, let's increase the production limit. I'm going to put this up to 50 so we don't, actually I'm going to put it up to 60. We'll double it. So we were at 30 before. We want to produce more planks so that we don't have an issue. I did run out of planks there for a bit and we had to wait, and we don't want that to happen again. So, all right, and we did have some thieves come through and steal some stuff. They stole some clay and iron slabs. That's actually really bad because we have to import those. We only have a finite amount. It's actually not good. So let's go ahead and deal with these bandits. I'm kind of tired of getting robbed. So let's go ahead and get these guys out. Wait for everybody to come. Let's just go. So essentially we're going to summon our people. Make sure they're not sprinting the whole time because then they'll just be exhausted and they don't fight well when they're exhausted. We need to come over here and take out both of these camps. So we're just going to move our troops over here. It's going to take a while. They'll be gone for a couple months. Make sure you do not do this right before harvest. So we're in June. We still have July and August, so we have 2 full months to get there and back before the harvest starts. So make sure you plan around that. Now, as we get closer to the bandit camps, they will send their troops out. Here they come. So we'll slow down a little bit. Let's get into our usual stand your ground defense, shield wall. Make sure you're at least 2 ranks deep. If you go thinner than that, then the AI can bunch up in the middle and you'll not having a good time. So once they hit, we'll switch them to push forward. So spears have this property where they reflect some of the charge damage bash on the enemy that just charged you. So always make sure you're not moving and that you're in defensive stand your ground when that charge first hits so that you can take advantage of their attack against them. Once they're dead, we come up here and we click on the bandit camp and you'll see the troops do go inside and then you get this message, this pop-up. So we have 2 options. We could send the resources to the town, which basically is that regional wealth that we've been getting. That's money when you sell items or, the burgage plots that give us money from taxes. Or we can send the money to our treasury. Now, treasury is used to settle new regions and it's also used to buy retinue troops. And finally, it's used for paying off the king's tax, which we won't have to really deal with in this one. But essentially, I think this is usually the most useful. But for a beginner, I don't think this is a bad idea, actually, sending it to the nearest town. So let's do that. That'll send the money directly to our bank account. And you can see right here, 257 wealth now. We got all of our stuff back too. We got our clay. We got all the stuff that was stolen we got back, so that's good. And then we get regional wealth 117. So now we actually have enough to buy the cabbages outright. Let's go ahead and do that. So cabbage seeds, and then also we have some pigs that we can expand over here. Make sure by the end of the year you should have just about everything upgraded that you all your burgage plot extensions. So that's only one. We have one more to get to, so let's keep moving down here. And again, defensive, shield wall, 2 ranks deep, and then you should be just fine. Let them touch, and then switch them to push forward. We might end up losing somebody here. No, we didn't. All right, so they did a good job. And then we'll clear the camp out, and then we'll go back. Now this one, again, we'll send it to the regional wealth. That's fine, because we have other things that we can upgrade. If you're playing on higher difficulty settings, you'd probably want to put it on your treasury, because it is kind of hard to get treasury. But like I said, I think for this one, just send it back to your town. All right, and then now we want everybody to come back and we need to disband so that they can go to work. Now remember, every time you send troops out, that means that your people that are working the fields, they're working, collecting firewood or hunting, all that stuff, they are no longer there. So it hurts your economy to do this. So make sure you're only doing it in downtime when you don't have a whole lot going on. And you can see here, we just upgraded the backyard extension, and for the vegetables, they do have to plant it and harvest it every year. So it's a little more labor intensive than some other things like the fruit trees, but it's still an incredible source of food, actually. So I think one burgage plot like this is probably worth almost as much as one mushroom plot. Like if you look at how much mushrooms this thing's producing, it's probably around 100 to 150 a year. Yeah, only 89 in the last 365. This one burgage plot is going to produce more than that. It's pretty crazy. And then here's a little trick, kind of an exploit, but I'm going to show it anyways. So as soon as your troops get inside the field, you can disband. Now, if you zoom in, you can see they are still here. They're technically still in the edge of the map. They have to walk all the way over here and then gather around to start doing that again to go back to their jobs. What you can do is disband, call them out immediately, and then they respawn back here, and then you disband them again. And now you basically just teleported them from the edge of the map to the center of your town. Kind of an exploit. I don't really care though. It's a nice little one to get your guys back to work quickly. So essentially what we're doing is biding our time until September, and we're processing everything that's in our storehouse. So we got people in the clay furnace, we got people in the bloomery converting all this stuff over. And then maybe 4 or 5 days before the harvest starts, we need to pull all that labor and then get it redistributed back up here to the farmhouse so that we can quickly get everything off the field. So make sure to get ready for that. So again, you don't want your people sitting around doing nothing, so you want them to process or maybe collect stuff from the mines and all that. But about 4 or 5 days before the end of the month, you want to pause it. We'll go maybe 3 days. So we'll go up to the 27th, we'll pause it, and we'll start pulling people off and put them back up on the farm. There we go. So August 27th, and we got a bandit camp. Oh boy, they're going to steal our stuff again, aren't they? Yeah, and that's way down there. Not a big deal. We'll deal with it later. So for now, let's go ahead and pull everybody off. So nobody on the clay furnace or the bloomery. And then we're going to redistribute them back up here. I've got 8 people. We'll put 7 for now. We'll leave 1 available in case there's something that's needed. And then again, don't forget to assign your livestock because they are needed to do this as well. One thing we should probably start doing is constructing more of these hitching posts and ordering more oxen because they're very, very valuable And it's probably a good idea to have some permanently so we don't have to keep micromanaging it as well. So why don't we build some over here next to our logging camp. And you can increase the capacity of these if you want right here. So hitching post upgrade, it'll increase the space by 1. The only downside is it costs you some materials, whereas these hitching posts are literally free. So you can spam these out, no big deal. And then later you can upgrade them when you have more resources than you know what to do with. So anyways, let's wait until the harvest and then we'll talk about how that's going to go. All right, so here we go. So 31 days in August, so it's September 1st, and you can see you get a pop-up right here saying harvest season started. Now, you'll see all these people, they have to come from their home. In the future, I'll show you how to set this up properly so you don't have to deal with this. Essentially, what you want to do is have these people that live in these houses specifically assigned to this farmhouse, and then they can just go right out and work the field. Looks like they were down here collecting food or water or whatever, but it's not a big deal. We'll lose maybe a day or two of the harvest, but you can see they're already starting to swarm here. They look like little locusts. Now, as they collect stuff, the food goes onto the field. And then the oxen that are assigned here go and pick up massive chunks. So you can see this oxen is going up here. We have a storage of 7. The oxen's going to take it. Yep, he just took a big chunk back. Now, the unfortunate thing is it rains a lot in September, which means anything that's on the field is getting damaged. So you will lose quite a bit of your harvest if it rains. And there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to know that the game is actively trying to screw you. So it's just how it is. So yeah, there we go. It's not raining anymore, so we'll get the rest of the stuff off the fields. Now, they're not done once they're collecting everything because now they have to plow and replant for next year. So don't pull everybody off until you're done. And you'll know that if you hold tab, you can see their percentages go back down to 0. Not just that though. So we haven't actually shifted into the next year. So we're still on this year rotation. Once you hit October, the crops will actually rotate. And then you'll see all these change. So like this will go to, what's the next one? This one will go to rye. So it'll go from wheat to rye. This flax will go to wheat. You can plow, but they won't plant in September. So if you do all your plowing in September, they'll do all the planting in October, and then you can pull your labor back and have them do something else. So you'll kind of see the process as it goes. They still need to collect all the stuff off the fields though. And then if you put your mouse over the farm, you click on it, you can see what you've collected, or you can hover your mouse over the top right here, the crafting materials. So it looks like we have 87 flax, 50 rye sheaves, and 16 wheat sheaves. No big deal there. We definitely lost some there for sure because of the rain, but yeah, like I said, it is what it is. Now the wheat and the rye, we're not done with that though, because we can't actually do anything with the wheat sheaves or the rye sheaves. We need to get the actual grain out. And once they're done planting and sowing and all that stuff, these workers will come back to the farmhouse, and then they will beat the stalks until they get all the grain out and do whatever they have to do. And then that is the thing that actually makes its way back down to here. And actually that brings up a good point. I don't know why they even allow this. You should not allow rye or wheat sheaves in your granary. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so don't allow that. Click on your granary and disallow it because it has to be converted in a farmhouse. So like if the granary pulls that, let's say they pull it all the way back down here, these workers are gonna have to go back down here to the granary, pull it back, and then do their job. So just disallow it from the beginning. I actually think maybe that's a mistake. They might actually not collect it anyways, because I've never done it before and I don't usually see it in here, but yeah, just as a precaution and do that. So anyways, let's let them do what they're supposed to do. So they're gonna plow and then sow. And then once that's done, they'll start converting the resources. And then once that's done, we'll cut everybody loose, upgrade some buildings, and then we'll talk about what happens next. And actually, that brings up a good point. This is a good time to expand our farming, the fields that we have. So this year, we only did, 1.5 Morgan? It's not bad, but we can definitely do better than that. So let's go ahead and place some more fields. I'm going to do it over here since this is kind of close. We'll probably put another farmhouse down somewhere. Maybe we could do it up here because this isn't really blocking anything, right? Barley and flax. This isn't blocking anything up here, so I might actually put it up there so that we don't cut down the trees. We'll have to cut down this patch, but yeah, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and start this. So again, just to recap, we're going to do 0.5 Morgans. We're going to do them in groups of 3. So here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more fields, and let's just make sure these all get properly done. There we go. We've got everything assigned. Now, when they're done with these fields, they're going to come up here and start working on that. September, October, November. We have 3 months to get it. Well, 2 months because we're at the end of September to get all this done. And then over the winter time, we'll add another farmhouse up here we'll get some houses and get them assigned to work that area as well. So we'll just slowly increase. It's better to do it like this, kind of increase it slow and organically rather than just have one giant field and then cross your fingers that you'll have enough labor and time to do it all. So here we go. Crops just rotated and you can see, yeah, rye, wheat, and flax, so it changed. But you can plow during September, so they do front load a little bit of that work. That kind of helps. So anyways, we're going to get all this plowed and sown, and then we'll come back and talk about what to do next. So we should be done maybe around end of November, hopefully. Hopefully before the end of November, but we'll see. And don't forget, as soon as you're able, after you have enough money to do your veggie plot upgrade, make sure all of your other plots are getting pigs. So keep expanding that. Make sure your food is continuing to go up so that you can explode your population quickly. We're finishing up that last field, and there we go. So now you can see next year we should get a pretty healthy amount. Also, we had a bandit come in and take some of our stuff. He took almost all of our wheat, so we need to go kill them and take that back because that's super annoying. But we should get a pretty healthy harvest next year. And then, like I said, that food is going to go directly into the month's supply. And we can use that to increase our population. We can grow into the barley. We can grow into other industries. And now you can kind of see the progression, right? You start out just stabilizing your town. Most of your expansion is built around food. So just make sure that you're constantly growing your food and, you know, if you can, your industry where you're selling stuff so you can make money and buy what you need. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But all this stuff is done. So what we need to do is pull everybody back except for a couple people. So maybe leave 1 or 2 families in there and they will get the rye sheaths and the wheat sheaths, get the grain out of it, and then send it back down to the windmill. And actually the windmill is, I guess we could do a road right here just in case that's a more efficient route if they come up here to grab it. So now what we need to do is get some labor into these other industries. So we need somebody in the windmill for sure. We need somebody in the weaver's workshop for sure because we're starting to do, we have the flax. We need to start converting that. And then we need to upgrade these burgage plots. This one needs to go to level 2. Whoops. This one needs to go to a bakery, but like I said, we don't have anything for him to do yet because we haven't quite gotten this far yet. This one, same thing. Once we get a little bit of the linen done, then we can go ahead and do the weaver's workshop. Also, we need to buy one of our trade routes. We need at least 100 wealth. So we'll wait. We're almost there. We need only 8 more to be able to do that. So we'll stop upgrading our burgage plots until we can do this. And then we'll unlock that trade route and we'll start selling the gambeson. So over the winter time, I think we just send some people to the mines, the gulags. We'll get enough people over there. We have some stuff that's still being built, so let's leave at least one person available to deal with the ox and then build these burgage plots. And then these guys should be coming back to deal with the wheat. Let's before we do anything else, let's watch it. Yeah, you can see here now it's getting converted over. So we have wheat grain and rye grain. They'll kind of do that naturally on their own. One thing I want to do is get that wheat back because that's a lot of food. So unfortunately, this bandit camp is pretty far away. We'll have to spend some time doing it, but let's go ahead and do that. And you can see our troops are up to, we have a full regiment, 36 out of 36. And we're still barely in we're like, what, a year and a half in? So that's not bad at all. Anyways, I'm going to do this real quick. And while we're on the subject of getting rid of this bandit camp, there's a couple things we can do here to make our life a little bit easier. So this is a really far territory for us to attack if a bandit camp spawns here. We can actually claim these territories if we want. We can claim with influence. So every time we kill bandits, we get influence. We've saved up to 1,000 now because we've taken out so many. If you go to your map, and you could do that either by zooming out or you click on the map button right here. And if you click on a region, you can spend influence to claim it. Bandit camps do not spawn in regions that are owned by somebody. So what you want to do, unless you're ready to expand into a second territory right away, it's better to take the territories that are furthest from you because that disallows the spawning of bandit camps here. So for example, if we take this region and we take this region, these two, any bandit camp that spawns is going to be relatively close to us and it's not going to take as much time to get to it. So that's kind of a nice little tip you can use. So let's go ahead and claim, I think this one, this is even further than this one. So I'm going to claim this one. Himmelreich, we'll take this one first. Yeah, the button is right down here, sorry. Claim with influence. So click on it and then you click claim. And there you go. Here we go. Region has been claimed, Himmelreich, and you can see it has the red border outline because we own it now. All right, bait these guys out. Usual stuff. We'll go shield wall, 2 ranks deep, let them crash into us, and then we'll switch to push forward. There we go. Very easily dealt with them. and then we'll sprint to clear this out and then sprint back home. Hopefully we can get some work done. And then again, we'll send this back to the town, and that gives us our granary that they stole back. 14 grain. Perfect. Unfortunately, it goes to the granary, it looks like. Yeah, so they're going to have to collect it from there to beat the grain out, but that's not a big deal. So you can see here, our windmill is starting to operate. We have wheat flour and rye flour, and if we go to our granary, they haven't quite picked it up yet, but they will start to put that in there. What that means is we need to upgrade this burgage plot to the bakery to be able to do that. Now, there is another option. If you don't want to do that, you can build under the farming tab, all the way on the right, there's a communal oven. And then this is like a normal building where you staff it with the family and they cook either wheat or rye bread. The problem with this is it's half as efficient as having a bakery and a burgage plot. So for every 1 wheat in a communal oven, it produces, so 1 wheat flour turns into 2 bread. If you do it at the bakery, 1 wheat flour turns into 4 bread. The rye is 1 to 1 in the communal oven and 1 to 2 in the bakery. So it's, like I said, it's half as efficient to use a communal oven, so I would recommend against it. The only downside with this is you have to manually toggle between wheat and rye on this. So when we upgrade this, you go to the advanced tab, just like right here. You have to switch between these different products. You can't produce more than one product at the same time, unfortunately. Honestly, they need to change that. You should be able to put in a queue like, I want to produce all of these and maybe put like a priority. So you do this one first, then this one up to this limit, this one up to this limit. They should do it like that. But as of right now, you can only do one at a time and you can't like shift queue them up. So we will have to do a little micromanaging here for this bakery. And in the future, if you don't want to do that, just build a second bakery and leave one on wheat and one on rye. It's not a big deal, but I'll show you exactly what that looks like once we get a little bit more of this stuff. Yeah, we need to get our troops back here anyway. So let's get them back home. Oh God, they're just standing there. All right, go back home and then we'll come back and talk about what to do next. So if we check in on our storehouse and our weaver's workshop, you can see we are converting linen, flax to linen, and then the linen gets put back in the storehouse. Now we need to, as soon as our people get back, we need to upgrade this to a tailor and make sure that we're producing gambeson. So that's looking pretty healthy. And we're not getting a whole lot of rye here or wheat. Yeah, these guys need to finish processing all that still. The problem is, yeah, one family's sick and the other family is, the troops are out. It's so hard to get work done when your troops are out. It's much better to do this during a slow season. So there you go. All our men are back. We can start working. We still have 2 months of winter time. So during the winter time, your main goal is to, number 1, process all the materials that you gather from your harvest. And then number 2, continue to collect all the temporary resources, get them off the map. And then number 3, prepare for next year's harvest. So increase, like I said, we already did the farmhouse, 3 burgage plots, and then a couple hitching posts. So these guys will be ready to go come next year. So we're going to keep an eye on this farmhouse, and as soon as all the wheat and the rye sheaves are converted, we're going to pull these workers and have them do something else. And then we need, I think I mentioned it before when we made the joiner's workshop and the blacksmith. As soon as you create an artisan's workshop, that labor is permanently removed from the unassigned family, and this is the only job they can ever do. So be careful, make sure you have labor to do it. So we do need to have our bakery up and running, and then we need to have our tailor, but what we'll do is we'll wait until these 2 families are done, and then we'll pull their labor back and use that to upgrade these. And then they'll be permanently stationed to do those jobs. And like I said, once we get the rest of the stuff out of the ground, the iron and the clay, then we could pull that. That's 6 families that will get back into our labor pool. We have 3 burgage plots here that are empty. So that'll be 3 more families. That'll be 9 in total that we can use for labor next year. All right, there we go. These are all done. You can see there's only grain, there's no more sheaves. So I'm gonna pull these people back. And then let's go down here and upgrade our tailor. So tailor workshop, it's going to cost us 10 wealth and 6 planks. No big deal. And then this one, we're going to do the bakery. That's going to be 10 and 6 as well. Perfect. And you can see that took 2 of the families out of the labor pool. Once these extensions are upgraded, make sure you pause the game because we do need to sort them out. So right now, as I mentioned before, you can't do both at the same time, which is just absurd. But we don't need to put any restrictions here, I don't think. There is something to consider. So if we look at our grain right here, it says low spoilage, very low spoilage for rye flour. Once we convert it into bread, I believe the wheat is still low, but the rye flour, the rye bread that we produce is low instead of very low. So there is an argument to be made for not processing all of your flour at once into bread, and you can leave it in rye flour because it's going to spoil less. I think that's a little bit too min-maxy for me. I don't have time to be bothered with all that stuff. I'm just going to convert everything into food as fast as we can. And then if we need more, we'll just increase our farming yields. So I'm going to leave it on wheat bread. Once we process all of that wheat flour, we only have 13, so it's not going to take that long. But once we have that done, then we're going to flip it over to rye, and then we're done for the year in terms of our bakery. So we'll do with that. Same thing here with this tailor workshop. We'll wait for this to upgrade, and then we need to make sure this one for sure you have to sort properly. So right now, advanced. If we leave it alone, it's going to convert linen into clothes. That's fine. You could do that. We don't really need it though. I would rather produce gambeson and make money for that. So you could put a production limit. I think at this stage, we want to sell everything that we have. So I'm just going to allow them to produce as much as we want. In the future, when we need to start producing clothes to make our people happier, then we'll want to put a production limit on this, maybe go up to like 30 or 40 in storage, and then they'll pause. And once we notice that we have 30 or 40 in storage, it usually shows right here under armor. Then we want to click back on here and then switch this over to clothes production. So like that. But for now, I think we'll just let them produce as much as they want. And because we have that done, let's go ahead and set up our trade route. So again, we go over to the military tab, gambesons. We want to export, and we don't need to keep any in stock. But if you want, your troops will use gambeson as armor, and it will give them some kind of benefit on the battlefield. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'd rather have the cash for now. So I'm going to leave our reserve down to 0. They'll still snag them out of the storehouse and equip them before we can sell them. But this would basically just mean that we have a supply. As people upgrade, they have gambeson ready to go off the shelf. But right now, just leave it at 0. Let's go ahead and establish the trade route. It costs us 100 regional wealth. That's not a big deal though. So we're good there. So as these start to produce, and we can see here, he's starting to get linen. And we should see that disappear and then convert over to gambeson. And then the gambeson will end up in the trading post. And then we're going to make buckets of ducats. There we go. And you can see we already made 2 gambeson. What about over here? So we've already made 64 bread. I think that's probably all the wheat that we have. Yeah, so we only have rye flour now. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this over, switch it to rye, and then we'll see them go to the granary, grab the flour. Yeah, you can see they're already making rye bread. Perfect. So the bakery is incredibly fast. In my previous game, I think I was producing something like 300 or 400 wheat per month, and one single bakery was able to handle all of that processing. So you don't need a bunch of these. They're really, really fast. The tailor workshop is a different story. They're a little bit slower. You probably need multiple tailors as you start to fill out all of your fields. But you know, it's one of those things where you can keep an eye on your inventory stocks. If you notice by the time your harvest starts next year, if you still have a massive amount of this stuff, then you need to put more labor into processing, or you need to put more labor into the final finishing product. So you can kind of adjust your economy based on that. So I don't want to go into too much detail there, but just a few things that are going to stick hopefully in the back of your head and think, oh yeah, that makes sense. I remember he mentioned something like that. Let's continue to order more oxen as well. We've got a lot of spaces for them, and we want to make sure we have enough to handle our farming season next year. So February, we have a little bit more to go in the winter time. Let's make sure we get everything out of the ground. 11 iron and 25 clay. Yeah, we're still lagging behind on that, unfortunately. And if you haven't done it yet, I would probably upgrade the granary at some point, because this thing doesn't fill up nearly as fast as the storehouse. But as you start to increase your farm yields, you'll notice that you're just going to blast this out of the water. It's going to go pretty fast. And there we go. One of our mine just exhausted itself. Perfect. Let's get the granary upgraded as well. And then let's go pull the labor back off of this. And then once all the materials are out, we will decommission the mine, get rid of this ugly road that goes to the middle of nowhere. Yep, see, it's already done. Perfect. So demolish, get rid of the road, and now it looks like nothing even happened. We'll do the same thing up here to the clay pit, but we still have some stuff to do there. Now, we talked earlier about the burgage plot that produces veggies, but we haven't really talked about fruit, and I think we should probably work on that right now, because fruit takes an incredibly long time to mature. The best producing fruit takes 4 years to reach full maturity. So what we want to do is find, kind of like we did here with this burgage plot for veggies, we want to find a nice open field that we can take advantage of. So barley and flax, there's not really much here, so I wouldn't mind doing it kind of in this same area. But we would have to use, we need more land essentially to do the same thing. So what we'll do, let's go ahead and try to section this off a bit. Can we get a duplex over here? So if we were to do something like this, maybe do another duplex right here. I'm just going to show you the process for how I kind of plan these out. We don't want to use all this space. We just want to kind of section it off so that we can use some burgage plots right there, kind of like what we did last time. But like I said, the fruit needs to be much, much bigger. It needs way more space. So this is pretty good. 560. I would probably go even bigger than that. So maybe let's go right up to the edge of that wood line. So something like 800. I think that's even better. I don't mind this. I don't know if that's going to be enough room to build burgage plots or other things right here. So let's just double check and see. Oh yeah, we can definitely get some burgage plots. They don't have enough room for extensions, so maybe we won't do burgage plots here and we could just build some kind of industry. If you really want to get granular, you can fine tune this, maybe cut a little bit more of that off, use a little bit of the backyard where the trees are and just cut them down. It's not a big deal. And then you would have more. I'm not going to micromanage it too much here, but you kind of saw what we did last time where we put the burgage plots right here. You can do the same thing right here, but it's just going to take a little bit too much time. So let's get this built. We need to get the seeds in the ground as soon as we can, but my God, it's going to be expensive. It's probably going to cost us close to 1,000, like maybe, well, maybe not 1,000, maybe like 600 to 800. So we have a lot of savings to do still, but let's work our way up to that. And we are selling, if we look at our records here, we're selling some of our Gambeson. So we are making money from that. So that's going to help quite a bit. And our clay mining pit just finished up. So let's pull all them out and then we'll delete that, clean that up a bit. And now we have all the clay that we'll ever get without importing some. So we can just keep an eye on that. We'll want to spend our time converting all this stuff. So the ore is getting converted. We have people in the bloomery. Let's get people in the clay pit to convert. And we just want to process as much of this stuff as we can. It's not that big of a deal. The most important thing right now is definitely getting the food sorted. So let's get an idea of how much this fruit farm is going to cost us. Oh, and you'll see here, we are starting to get a harvest in of our veggies. And you can see we don't even have all the fields done. Look at how much is undone. And we're still already getting 93. So this year we'll get 93. Actually, more than that. Yeah, because they're collecting some right now. They're still taking it in. So don't underestimate the value of a large veggie farm and a large fruit farm. Very, very important. All right, here we go. Yeah, 810 wealth. That's about what I thought it would be. That is so much money, but it's worth it. So we want to make sure we can save up and get that done. One thing that you'll need to keep an eye out for as you start to expand away from your center. So our center is right here where we have our granary and our storehouse. Notice these guys are producing pork, but they're not actually getting it taken into the granary. So that means we need more people to work the granary. So we need to put another employee, put a second one in. We'll see if that helps. We might even need a third, but you can see there's 6, 5 here, and 6 here. Now you'll notice the spoilage is higher. It's a medium spoilage, which means every month that sits here, it's going to spoil faster than if it was in the granary. In the granary, it's a low spoilage. So you want to get everything into the granary as fast as you can, but obviously you don't want to just overstaff for that. So you find a happy medium, but yeah, keep an eye on these things. If you notice a lot of stuff, yeah, even right here, they're not able to collect it. If you start to notice that, just put more people in your granary. Let's put 3 in for now until all that gets collected, and then we can pull them back later and have them do something more useful. And keep an eye on your storehouse. As soon as you see materials start to disappear, for example, here we don't have any more iron ore. There's no more iron ore being processed here, so let's pull these guys, delete the building. We will want to have it rebuilt later, because as we use this up, we're going to need to import and still be able to process that, but we'll probably be able to find a more efficient place to do it at. Same thing here, clay, we still have a bunch of clay to convert into tiles, so let's put as many people into that, just get it all knocked out so we don't have to worry about it. We'll delete it, and then we'll put something more useful in this spot. We just made a big sale of Gambeson. We're up to 572, so we're getting there. It's going to take a while, but if you don't want to wait that long, you could just do one of these other ones. You're still going to get a decent amount of food, but I don't know. I always feel bad when I do the lower tier ones. So I'm going to wait a little bit. We need 200 more regional wealth, and then we'll be there. Right, and we finished our clay. So if we look at this, there's no more clay. It's all in the tiles, and the clay furnace is empty. So same thing. I'm going to delete. Pull those workers out, delete that building, and we'll get all those resources back. And then same thing, we can pull workers out from other industries. So we don't have any more flax to process, so we'll pull them out. Unfortunately, the tailors, they just have to stay. Same thing with the baker, we can't do anything with them. They're just going to be idle. We can pull our windmill worker back out, and then we can start redistributing that labor to something else. I think what we should probably do is prepare for harvesting season this year. So June, July, August, September, we still have a few months. Let's start to gather some barley here so that we can get ale going. I think we'll probably end the video after we get some ale and get a few things upgraded to maybe burgage level 3. So let's do that. Let's get a farm. So we're going to do a farmhouse here near this section. I think right here is probably fine. We need at least 3 burgage plots with the extensions. There we go. And then get a couple of these back here and keep ordering oxen. You can always tell if you have room for oxen. If you hover your mouse over here, it'll say 5 out of 8 at the very top. So that means we have room for 3 more oxen after this. Let's build the farmhouse. We're not going to set the fields up just yet. We want to wait until September after everything's been harvested. Then we will set them up and then they'll plow and sow and everything. And then the following year, we'll actually get the crops for that. So there we go. We've got our farmhouse upgraded, ready to go. We've got the burgage plots and we've got our fields and nothing is set to them. We'll add the crop rotation later because if we plan it right now, it's just a waste of time. We're going to get almost nothing out of it. So infrastructure is ready. We are ready to go. We just need to wait until September. So we'll continue processing stuff, I guess. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot we can do in the interim here until we can get more farmlands going. So if you really want to go fast, you can do another setup here, get another farm with all the burgage plots. So in general, and I haven't tested it to be exact for this patch, but in the previous patch, it seems like it's kind of similar. What I typically do is every farmhouse has 3 family members and 2 oxen assigned to it. They can handle about 2 Morgan each, roughly, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how much commute time they have and all that stuff. So generally, you know, if we're doing 1.5 to 2 Morgans each, so like this is probably not enough for these 2 families to deal with. This is probably maybe a little bit too much for them to handle, but if they're all kind of working together, they can kind of help. If these guys finish early, they can come down here and help out essentially. Since we don't have a whole lot left to do for the year and we still have a couple months before harvesting season, I'm going to set up another. So we've got our fields up here, farmhouse, 3 burgage plots, 2 hitching posts. So we'll just keep doing that and then adding oxen as we go. We're getting more bandit camps pop up. There's one in the north and one in the south we have to deal with over the winter time. But this is what I was mentioning before. You do not want to pull your labor right before harvesting season. I'm worried we're going to get raided right now, and that's going to keep us from harvesting because we need all of our labor, but we also need people to defend the town. So hopefully that's not the case. Fingers crossed. August 28th. So yeah, don't forget, right before you get to the harvesting season, pull as much labor off of your other processing stuff as you can. I was keeping most people in the construction industry, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. Let's go ahead and put them back on. I'm going to put 4 on this farmhouse and 4 on this farmhouse. Oh boy, I forgot to upgrade that one. Oh, that's not good. What I can do is put some livestock down here temporarily and then put a couple people on it. That's fine. Yeah, no big deal. Okay, so we are ready for harvest. We'll get this thing upgraded and we'll assign the oxen to it when we can. There we go, harvesting season. We should see everybody rush out. Yep, they're already starting to gather stuff from the field. And this is the importance of having people live close to the farmhouse, because as soon as that bell rings and it's harvesting season, you don't want people commuting from halfway across the map. I didn't necessarily do that just yet. There's a way to do it. I'm going to show you before the end of the video. I'll give you some tips for how to optimize for the mid and late game. I didn't want to throw too much at you at once, but essentially what you can do is you can assign the people living here to a specific job. Like if you look at the people that are working here, they may not necessarily live right here. Actually, farmer, firewood cutter. Yeah, you can see this guy should be a farmer instead of a firewood cutter. And then firewood cutter, that's not good. So it's definitely not optimized, but I'll show you how to do that at the end. So let me get through the harvesting season, and then we're gonna, once we're done collecting, we need to get these sorted, get people occupied in here so we can plant everywhere, and then we should be in good shape. So we're about 2/3 of the way through the harvest. It hasn't rained yet. Please don't rain now. We've got a lot of crops out on the field that we need to collect here. So hopefully the oxen are going around and getting all that stuff off the field before it rains. But we should be able to see a pretty big increase in yield here. So 66 wheat, 133 rye, 226 flax. So last year I think it was around 80 something. So more than double. I think it rained on us last year too. So not only did we have more fields this year, but we also didn't have rain on our stuff. So that's looking really good. Now, this stuff all needs to get dealt with, but we also, now that everything's off the ground, we could add this as well, or we can wait until they're done and then move everybody over here. I don't think it matters. We should be okay. What I'm gonna do is wait until this is done. Yeah, see, the harvest is done, the crop rotation is done. Let's make sure everything gets fully sown and plowed and everything, and then we'll add this. So again, we're holding tab, we're watching to making sure all this percentage signs go away, and then it'll show a number. Once that's done, then we can switch back. We did lose a little bit of stock on our field, but not that much actually. So they're mostly done. There's still a few fields that need some work, but I'm going to go ahead and add these fields to the mix and allow them to work over here as well. So let me go through this. It's the same process we did before. Bring up all 3 fields, drop down the crop rotation. And now at this point, I think our food is probably going to be okay. If you wanted to do, say, wheat, barley, flax instead of wheat, barley, rye, you could do that, and then you would be able to get more flax to sell stuff. I'm going to continue on the same convention. I'm going to go wheat, barley, and then rye, just so we can make sure that we have enough food. And then in the future, if we start to get way too much bread, then we can either scale that back, or any new fields, we'll just make sure that we don't get as much of the other food types. So, but this should be good. That's one set of fields. I need to do it for all 12. I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, everything is set. So now we'll see some of the labor shift over to this field. And I didn't want to do it too early because I did want them to finish focusing, focus and finish on this field. But now all the oxen are going to come here and do most of the plowing. The ideal situation is the oxen do all the plowing and the laborers do all the sowing. If they plow by hand, it's very inefficient. So that's why you want to have a very high concentration of oxen to laborers. So that's why we do 3 families to 1 to every 2 oxen. You could probably even do 2 to 2, but I find that they have a hard time getting all the harvest off the floor. So when it comes time to planting, they just don't, they're not able to get everything done in time. So having that extra family does help quite a bit. So right now, obviously we have more labor than we need. We have 4 instead of 3 families, but when you start to get these guys into permanent situation where their only job is farmhouse and you're not micromanaging them, then you do 3 families, 2 oxen, 3-2, 3-2, etc. It's going to be kind of close on this year. I think we might actually miss some of the harvest. Unfortunately, we're getting close to the end. We've got about 7 or 8 days left, and we still have a few fields that haven't been completely done. Like I said, we did a big expansion without having the population to do it. So in the future, we'll have it optimized properly, but it's okay if it doesn't fully fund because this is what we're building. We're relying on this. This is all new addition, so we're not really relying on it. Actually, we did finish it. Yeah, we finished it with 1 day to spare. Perfect. All right, so wintertime. Now we need to process everything that's in here. So again, we're going to go back through to our farmhouses. Anything that has wheat, we will leave at least 1 person in there to process. If there's nothing in there, we'll pull them. So this one has, oh yeah, see, this has a lot of people. So we'll put some people back in. This one has people, and they've already been gathering all the flax out. So let's start putting people back into the weaver's workshop. We'll put somebody in the windmill. And then we need to process all that. So you can kind of see the gameplay loop now going from harvesting season to non-harvesting season. That's essentially the 2 that you'll be dealing with. And one thing we didn't talk about yet was upgrading certain things like the well. So the well can supply only 15 people at level 1 and I believe 50. Yeah, 50 at level 2. So let's upgrade our well. We have some burgage plots that are not getting water. Like this one doesn't have any water access. These people probably don't have water access. So you could also just build more wells out. You can also upgrade it. It's not that big of a deal. If we want more water up here, there is some water over here. So we could build one like over here, and then anybody that lives in this area can go to there instead of having to travel all the way down here. So you can spread them out a little bit. The other thing before, if we want to upgrade these people, we need to make sure that we can support their needs. So if we look at a level 2 burgage plot like this tailor, they need garments. We need either animal produce or fruits. We need a next level of church access, and we need a beverage. So the only thing we don't have right here, or we don't potentially have, is going to be the beverage. So obviously we have ale, we have barley in the field. Once we get that processed, we'll be able to bring it back and turn that into ale and then satisfy that need. So we'll work on that at some point, but we do need to get the church upgraded as well. And we can't really do that unless we import some stuff because we don't have access to rough cut stone, which is that big block you see there. That's a dressed stone, but you can turn a rough stone into a fine stone if you import it. So I'm not going to spend any money just yet, but we're going to do that after we get our pear orchard upgraded. We'll deal with that. And then we will spend some money importing some things, get the church upgraded. We'll start producing some clothing instead of just gambeson like we're doing right now. And then we will try to get our population happy and ready to go to tier 3. And then we're pretty much done. Now we're also, because it's wintertime, we're clearing out bandit hideouts, getting our money back. All the stuff they stole. Yeah, they stole a bunch of stuff from us. So we'll put those back. There's one more bandit camp down in the south. We'll clear that out while we're processing everything back home. And we did cross the threshold. We have 929 wealth. Let's go ahead and put down the pears. So I'm going to click that up. There goes most of our cash. We still need a little bit of money to buy more oxen. We have room for 2 more. And then we also need to continue to upgrade these burgage plots so they can produce meat and whatnot. So we cleared out the rest of the bandit camps, and it looks like our troops are going to get back just in time for spring. But I'm going to go ahead and claim this region so we don't have to come down here anymore, because that is a hell of a trek, man, going from all the way there to there. It took us 3 months to clear these 2 bandit camps. So if we can narrow down where they come from, then we can kind of limit how much time we're away from our house, from our home region. Now let's start transitioning into getting level 3 burgage plots. There's a couple things we need to make sure that we do. As I mentioned before, garments. So we have a decent amount of gambeson that we've sold already. We have 390 regional wealth. We already upgraded the most expensive thing that we'll be doing. After that, we can probably switch our tailor's workshop off of the gambeson and back to clothing. And there's a weird thing that happens. So clothing is produced and immediately consumed until there's probably a better way to explain it. Let me go to the burgage plot here. So if we go to people, on the people tab, you hover over this family consumption. You use 2 clothes per year and 1 food per month. Now, that twice per year clothing that deficit is actually saved up. So for example, we've had these guys upgraded for a couple of years now, right? And they have not had clothing. As soon as we produce clothing, it doesn't mean that is immediately satisfied. You have to clear the backlog. It's some ridiculous thing that I don't know why the dev did this, but I'm assuming it's going to change. But as of right now, in this patch 0.805, you have to clear the backlog before you can actually get that consumption back to even. So we have, I don't know how many tier 2s. We have 8 level 2 families that need clothing. And so if it's 8 families, they use 2 per year. So we need 16 clothing per year. And let's say we're in year 3 almost. So if we did that for 3 years, then that's, 30, 16, 18, 20, so 40, 42, something like that. So we need probably about 50 clothing to produce before we even break even and start to satisfy this need. Now, if you've had a bunch of shops that you haven't satisfied the need on for even longer than that deficit is going to be huge. It can take you years to clear it. So again, this might be changed in a patch in the future, but as of right now, that's how it works. So we switch this over. We're going to be producing clothing. The good thing about this is it's only 1 linen per 1 clothing, and we have hundreds. We have literally hundreds. If you look right here, 110 flax that we can use. And then obviously we have a bunch of linen in the storage. So once we get that back, we'll be able to produce about 160, 150 clothing, something like that. We should be back to break even at this point once we get that done. And then we are switching off of our moneymaker right now, but we need to do that so that we can import some stuff. Let's go ahead and get some rough cut stone. There's 2 buildings that we need to upgrade the church. And if we do go to our industry tab, it's going to be a stonemason. I'm going to put this right over here next to our trading post. So when it comes in, we can just process it right there. And then we also need a lime kiln. This one can go anywhere near your storehouse because it's going to convert rough cut stone, these bad boy rubble stone, into lime. So let's go ahead and build those. And then we're going to go to our trading post, and we are going to, on the crafting materials, we're going to import rough stone. So import, we need 20 of these. It's going to be very expensive. So 20 times 13, it's going to cost us 260. Luckily, we have enough to support that, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, it's pricey. So once those come in, I'll show you how to process that. Another bandit camp. Jeez Louise, man, leave us alone. And it's in the region we're claiming. Of course. Anyways, we'll get that done. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I'm building 5 more burgage plots right next to the trading post. And I'm doing this specifically for... We're going to build apiaries in the back. We don't want to spend the money yet. It's just more for the end game tips that I'm going to talk about. But if you want to do that, you can set this up. And I usually put them right next to the trading post because you can only have 5 of these things and have them impact the amount of yield that you get from your crops. It'll make more sense in the future. Every apiary you build will increase the yield that you get from your field because it's like the bees pollinating everything. But you can only get that bonus with up to 5 apiaries. So I build 5 right here, and then anything that they produce just immediately gets sold in here under the crafting materials tab. Yeah, right here. So we'll export honey and wax, and then whatever. We don't have to buy a trade route for it. It'll just kind of naturally fizzle out on its own. But yeah, we need more money. Let's make sure we can do these other things first. All right, there's a region claimed. So that's 2. They won't be able to spawn in there anymore after this. Probably get Schwarzholz next, because that when if they spawn down here, that's a long trip. But then I'll just leave these 3, and it's not too far to get to those regions. Here we go. We just got our first shipment of 10 rough stone. We need 10 more. Also, let's not allow these guys to take that. Yeah, don't accept rough stone. We'll take that out of the storehouse so that it can stay there. The lime kiln's done. This one, we already have the materials to upgrade it. And if we go over a church upgrade, you can see we only need 10. So we're going to come in here, advanced, set a limit of 10. Oh, I forgot to mention, single click is 1 at a time. Shift click is 10 at a time. So if you want to do that a little faster, or you can just manually input the number you want. So like I say, you want to do 1,000, you could do that. But I'm going to set mine to 10. And we'll get somebody in there to help get those 10 done. And then once that's done, we just need the rough stone, and then we can upgrade our church. And since we have a lot of spare labor and not really a whole lot of work to do, I'm going to go ahead and prepare some of the stuff for the ale. We need malt houses for that. I'm going to build one right near the granary because that's what accepts the ale and the barley. And then we will also need a place to distribute it. So under the residential tab, you can find the small tavern right here. Fortunately, this is going to be just a bit too big for this area. Yeah, that sucks. Okay, well, we'll build it in the back. There we go. So I just built a little offshoot road so that we can get both of these relatively close to the granary without having to mess up all of our buildings. So anyways, we'll get those done. We don't need them yet, but once we start to harvest all the barley, we will need it. We'll get ready for it. Here we go. We got 20 rough cut stone. So let's go ahead and turn off that trade so we don't accidentally buy more because we don't have a use for it right now. No trade. Let's get our stonemason station going so that it can process it. See if our lime kiln, did we get our 10 lime? We do have 10 mortar, so that's perfect. We can turn this off, delete the building, and you can see here we have 10. We just need our 20 cut stone, and then we can upgrade. Okay, here we go. We're getting raided. It's 3 raiders. That's a lot. Okay, we might need more. Let's see, we have spears and shields. We could get a few more troops out. If we start a new unit, it's going to cut them in half, but we'll have 2 groups of 22 instead of 1 group of 36. I think that should be plenty. So let's deal with them. They're coming in from here. Yeah, it's 3 groups. It should be fine. We could have produced more weapons and shields. That would have probably been a good idea, but that's all right. Let's get all our troops out, ready to defend. All right, and again, we're going to fight around our corpse pit because these bodies need to go somewhere once we're done fighting. So we'll try and draw them in here. They're going to look like they're going to flank you. Just ignore them. It's not good for them because what they're doing is they're cutting their forces into, you know, small groups. Like they could charge all as one, but now it's a 2v2. And this guy's not even fighting yet, so don't worry about them doing stupid stuff like that. Switch our guys after we absorb the charge. Yeah, see, now they are going to get a little bit of a flank, but they've already lost half their forces over here. They should have just grouped up all at once. Here we go. We're going to lose probably 1 spearman. Here we go. They're done. Charge. Yeah, we lost some spearmen now. Get over there, dude. Oh, we lost 4. Wow. Okay, well, I knew that was going to happen because we didn't really have enough troops. So what we should probably do now is go back to our blacksmith. I had him set on tools. Let's have him switch back to focusing on spears, and then we'll be able to get almost 2 full groups here once if we have enough population to support it. Yeah, we have 60, so we'll just be shy of having full groups, but 30 and 30 is plenty. But yeah, we need to get the corpse pit built and then clear up all these people. Now, because we lost some people, we don't want to throw our fellow brethren in the corpse pit. So what we'll do is we'll have 1 person assigned to the wooden church. They will go grab our people that died, and they'll have a proper Christian burial in the church. Everybody else gets a corpse pit because they're filthy bandits. Don't forget about that. Make sure you have somebody in the wooden church. You can also bury bandits in the church. It doesn't really matter, but the corpse pit has 4 slots. The wooden church only has 1. So just for sake of brevity, it's a little better to use the corpse pit for bandits. All right, now you can see we've already cleared through the backlog on our garments. They're starting to show up in the tailor shop. What about the baker? Yep, so they've got it. This is the next thing to watch out for. If we click on our marketplace, our general goods, it's very close to maxing out. So that means we need to put another laborer in the storehouse so they can open up a market stall and we'll have more capacity. So we'll throw 1 more person on there, and then you'll see the storehouse supply capacity goes down. We have more room to supply people. And we're going to need that because we are supplying clothing for all of our tier 2. And as we expand, we'll need more and more people. All right, let's talk about the apiaries. So we've got people moved in here. Let's go ahead and upgrade the extension. It's 50 regional wealth each. So we need 250 to get all 5. Let's go ahead and upgrade these. 2, 3, And then this one is ready to go as well, although there's nobody living there. But if we look at our efficiency, we were at 0.06, now we're at 0.09. And that's because as soon as you click up the apiary, it gives you the bonus right away. So this affinity pollination basically means that we're going to get a 3% increase to our yields. So if we would normally collect 100, we would now get 103. It's not a huge difference, but it does add up, especially when you have massive fields. Like right now, if we get all this filled out, we're going to be collecting close to 1,000. So that could be a pretty sizable amount. 30, 40 extra each yield. It does add up. So, and this is not necessarily the best example of a region, because if you look at the environment, our farm region is still not very high. If you get a place that has a lot less wood coverage and more meadows, you're going to see an even bigger increase in that. But then you would get less pannage, so your pigs wouldn't produce as much. Obviously, for this region, we're relying pretty heavily on farming land, so it might make sense to cut all this down, cut it all down, and then get the bonus for that. And then we could always import meat from somewhere else if we really wanted to. But anyways, just something to consider. There, so our apiary is built, and you can see if you hover your mouse over the apiation, tends to, let's see, increases pollination strength by 2% per active apiary up to 10%. So current effect 10%, that's as high as we can go. If we build more of these, it doesn't help us in that regard anyways. So it does produce honey, and then every third or fourth month it'll produce wax, which we already set up our trade routes for that. So you can see honey and wax, we'll sell both of those. You will still make money by doing that, but you won't get any more yield to your farmlands. Anyways, you won't get any more bonus to that. So we'll probably leave it at the 5. If you're doing heavy farming, I do recommend it. Now that also increases the yield over here as well. You can see pollination. So we get a bonus to that, and it also helps our orchards. I don't know, it's not the most important thing to do in an area where you're not doing heavy farming, but it can still help you out if you have a lot of vegetables and fruit orchards. Man, this is so annoying. So I don't know what causes this, but there are things that just flat out disappear. So if we look at our records for imports, we imported 20 rough cut stone. If we look at what we have 11 dressed stone, and we have no rough cut stone. If I check my stonemason, no rough cut stone. Check up here, it's not sitting somewhere randomly. We have 0 rough cut stone. I know I bought 20. I don't know where the other 9 went. They just flat out disappeared. So yeah, this game loves to do stuff like that, and it's pretty frustrating, but just be aware it can happen. So be ready for it. We have to import some more and spend more of our money. We don't have any money, so it's going to take us a while. So it looks like the church upgrade is going to have to wait. Now this is going to happen. It's random. It's very RNG, but you can see we had a drought. So a lot of our crops just got damaged. The harvest this year is not going to be nearly as good as we thought it was because of that. You can't do anything about it. You just got to, I don't know, just deal with it, I guess. So usually when you plan this out, you want to try to have more than you need for stuff like this, and then also any excess you can sell. But usually a good idea to stock up on extra supply. So like if you have exactly enough fields to feed your people and give them alcohol, and then you have a drought, or if it rains on your crops, you're just going to be screwed. So try and build a little bigger than you think you need. All right, I just realized what happened. The AI knew we were trying to upgrade something, and so they specifically targeted this rough cut stone. They stole 9 here, and they just stole 3 more right here. You little punks. All right, we'll have to deal with that later. Let's turn off our import because I know where they are now. So it wasn't the game. It was the bandits. All right, now let's start to talk about how to shift into more of an automated mode where you don't have to shift labor around. You can see right now we have 16 unassigned families. We still have some stuff that we could put people on. Obviously, we pulled them off because we don't have any product to process. But essentially what you want to do is put enough people to process everything within a 12-month cycle, right? You don't need to process everything instantly that as soon as it's harvested. So ideally, you would have maybe enough people in the Weaver Workshop to deal with the flax before you hit September, right? Because then you know the next harvest is coming in. And if you haven't dealt with everything already, you're going to have an excess. Let's say you have like 50 in storage still, and then more flax comes in on top of that. Then the next year we're going to have 100, and then more flax comes on top of that. And then you're just going to flood your storehouses, and you're going to have to either sell it off or build storehouses just to put it somewhere temporarily. So yeah, ideally you want to try to set it up that way. Let's also talk about a couple other things. So where your laborers are coming from is very important. So for example, These people spend a lot of time. The people that are working on these burgage plots out here that have vegetables and fruit, they're going to have a lot of time where they're not able to do their job. They need to come back and grab, do the harvest and then go back to their work. So you don't want these people on critical roles. For example, forager, that's fine. If they work at the granary or the storehouse, that's also fine. If they work as farmers, that's not okay. So we don't want anybody that's working in these burgage plots to work as a farmer. Because then what happens, especially for the fruits. So fruits are harvested during September and only September. So if anybody's assigned to work a farm field from this plot, their actually priority is going to be to pick the pears first. Once they're done picking all the pears, then they will go back up here. And you could see that's not only do they have a long time to do all this, but then they have to commute back up here. So it's just a wasted person. You can have a person assigned here and they won't get a single thing done in September on the farm fields. So what we want to do is avoid that. So let's go ahead and pull these people off. And what I usually like to do is have anybody that's doing fruit and veggies, they need to work the granary. So I'm going to kick all the granary workers out, or we're going to have only these people do it. So let's go ahead and bring up both of our burgage plots, go to the people's tab, and then we're going to go up to our granary and we are going to assign family. So assign, click on granary, scroll down, same thing there. Now, if they already have a job, so for example, let's assign this guy. We had 4 there, we need a 4th one. This person is currently assigned as a forager. We can just reassign. And then now they are no longer a forager. They're going to switch over to, do I cycle it? Yeah, granary worker now. So now they're working in the granary instead. And then you can see here our forager is 1 less. So we had, I think, 2 families up there. Now they're only 1. So be aware of that. The next thing is making sure that these farmhouses are being worked by the people right next to it. So unassigned firewood cutter. So be aware when you pull people off of a specific job, you need to make sure that you replace them once you're done. So like this woodcutter is so logging camp. So we'll pull that person off, and then the woodcutter lodge, pull them off. Let's also pull the charcoal kiln off, and then we'll reassign people later. So let's come back up here and we should see everybody unassigned, and the third one is unassigned. Perfect. So now we're going to assign them to this farmhouse. Now these 3 people they live right next to their job. When the bell rings and it's time to harvest, they should, assuming they're not doing something stupid down here like going to church or getting water from the well, they should be spending most of the time idle right here. When it's time to go, they should be leaving their house and immediately going to work the fields. So in theory, that's what it is. Sometimes you get lucky and they're coming down here to do something else. So just got to be aware of that. We'll do the same thing for everybody over here. So unassigned, and unassigned. Perfect. So again, just click them, assign them to that farmhouse, and now they will, as long as you don't unassign people from here, they will always stay here at the farmhouse. So I'm going to do that for the other 2, and then we'll come back. So quick recap. We reassigned our granary worker to come from these to make sure that we're not going to fluff up our farming up here. We have 3 people and 2 oxen assigned to each, and you can go in here and double check. Make sure your livestock's there. You have 3 families. They all live close by. Livestock. Everybody's ready to go. So now in a few days when harvesting season comes, we will be poised and ready to take everything down in time, hopefully. Again, these aren't optimized exactly to this, but it should be very close. So we'll see if we need to add another farmhouse or more families, we can do that later. But let's just see what it comes out with like this. And keep in mind, this is like a partial harvest because we have a drought that killed a lot of our crops, but that's all right. But you can see here, we still have labor. So we have 8 families unassigned. We need to find something for them to do. So what we would probably do is go back through and reassign some things. So we need a woodcutter to make sure we don't run out, charcoal kiln to process. We need somebody at the windmill. We need a few people at the weaver's workshop. So maybe 1 or 2 families there. We also need somebody at the malt house because don't forget, we have barley being processed and we're going to have that coming in. We need somebody who worked at the tavern to serve the ale. We also need somebody on the logging camp because we pulled them off. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. We don't really have a whole lot of spare labor here. We have 1 family left and I don't really want to use them. Yeah, we'll have to use them for the stonemason station once we get our stone back. But that should be good for now. Let's let the harvest happen and see how we do. So hopefully, if everything goes well, we should see most of these people leaving their house. Nope, they're all the way down there. Yeah, see, these people are close by. That's perfect. These people were close by. Perfect. And these people were half and half. Yeah, some of them were down here. What are you doing down here, dude? Harvesting. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing down here. I guess they were hanging out at the tavern, even though there's no ale there yet. But let's keep an eye and see if we're able to get everything off the ground. So a couple things when you're watching this to make sure that you're getting everything. You want to take stock of where you're at relative to the end of the month. So September 15th, we should have that half of the month is done. We should have roughly half of the fields harvested. And you can see here, almost all of this is done. And then probably about 60% of this, 50 to 60% of this is done. So I would say we are probably on track to do this perfectly. So I think what we have set up here with 3 families, 2 oxen for every 6 half Morgan fields is plenty. It's actually probably overkill. I think we could fit a few more fields, but I don't want to push it too much, especially in a beginner's guide. If you're off by your numbers by a little bit, it's still going to be able to handle it. I didn't want to have it like precise, exact, and then you have to have everything perfect on your end as well for it to work. But you can see here, we got 6 days left. We're pretty much done getting all the stuff off the ground. Here we go. 5 more here. And we have officially cleared the fields. Yep, we're done. And we have 4 days to spare. So like I said, if you want to optimize this a little bit more, you could add a few more fields here, maybe add 1 or 2 more fields here and see if that's enough for them to clear it. But this is a good rule of thumb. It's safe, and you know for sure every year you're going to get your full harvest. So, all right, that is it. Crops got rotated, and looking at the amount that we brought in, 127 flax, that's like half of what we did last year. So yeah, we got brutalized by that drought. 87 barley, so I'm assuming we'll get somewhere around 200 next year once we have a non-drought year. Then we also have, we already converted some of it to malt actually. So we collected about 100. You can see 23 malt and 87 barley. So that is actually not that bad. And then 120 wheat, 156 rye. That's not too bad. We still have a lot of bread, I think, in stock. Yeah, we have 200 rye and 130 wheat. So as you start to get this, one thing you can do is adjust. If you're getting too much bread, especially of one type of bread, it's like in this case, we have too much rye. You can come in here and switch off, like instead of having a rye here, maybe switch this to barley, right? So you have 1 less field of rye, but you get more barley in a year. You could adjust things on the fly and just kind of keep an eye on it, see where they stack up. Just make sure you're getting enough food. That's the biggest thing. If you run out of food, you're going to be in a bit of trouble. So that should be good. Let's keep going. Now, the next thing to watch out for, because harvesting is only half, the other half is plowing and sowing. So by the time we get to the end of November, we should have everything done. It looks like we're well on track. So it's still barely the beginning of November, and we're like 80% done with this. So I think usually the bottleneck is the harvesting season and not the planting and plowing. So in general, if you're going to optimize on the harvest, not the plowing and sowing. So September is the most important month. And then after that, for the most part, you're going to be okay if you can get everything done in September. So here we go. We just finished up. Now, like I said, I set this up so that we don't have to touch this again. I don't want to pull these laborers off because then I have to redo that every year. It's a huge pain in the butt. So these guys are just going to be idle, sitting around doing nothing all year. It's not that big of a deal. We were mostly having them sit around do nothing anyways when I pulled them back. Like, we don't have a whole lot of stuff to process because we have extra labor here to handle it anyways. What we can do though is increase our population so that we can increase more, like if we wanted to start more industries in here and all that. So you would build more burgage plots in here, build more industry. And if you want to expand your farming, then you would build your housing out here to accommodate that as it goes. So always build your housing next to the farmhouse, build another farmhouse right here with 3 burgage plots, etc., etc. And you can just keep expanding that way. All right, I'm gonna go get our rough cut stone too, because I'm so annoyed at that. These little bastards, they stole our stuff. So let's go take them out. 2 more bandit camps, and that should be enough to snag another region too. We're already at 880. There we go. Look at all that stuff they stole, man. They stole stone, they stole our firewood, they stole a bunch of linen. Little bastards. All right, we'll get it back, let's process everything, and then we should be good to go. All right, we are done getting our stones back. We can upgrade the church. Let's go ahead and do that. And then we can delete this once we're done with the dressed stone. We don't have any use for it right now, but whatever. Yeah, we bought a little extra because of those bandits. There we go, our church is upgraded. And now if we look at our burgage plots up here, we have everything filled except for beverage. What's going on here? Oh, I'm an idiot. So you can process barley into malt, but you need a brewer. Yep, so we need to build a brewer, and we can have them maybe right across the street from the tavern. So we're going to build a burgage plot, a single, right across the street from the small tavern, and then they'll be able to pull barley or sorry, yeah, they get the malt, and that malt will get turned into ale, and then the ale across the street to the tavern, and then we're good to go. So as soon as somebody moves in here, now here's a cool little trick. If you have something that really needs to be filled right away, you can delete buildings that already have people living in them, and they will be forced to move. You can see that person was forced to move next door. That one's moved there, and now if we delete this one, they have nowhere to live, so they get forced into this one, and we can just about immediately upgrade that to Burgage Plot level 2. Once they get their supplies, wait for a day. Yep, there they go. So we can upgrade them. And then we can just come back here and rebuild these. It's not a big deal. I'll just build them on the other side this time. So there you go. No harm, no foul. That's done. Let's get a brewery. And there you go. Once that's done, he'll start converting the barley into ale, and then we'll see everybody getting satisfied from that. Now, this one is similar to the well. Right now, it can only supply 15 houses. If we need more than that, we would upgrade this, and it can supply 50. And then if we have more than 50 that are drinking ale, we need to increase that number. Here we go. And they are, yep, the brewer's already starting to convert. We've got 12 in the last 10 days. These ones, I think, usually produce like 40 to 50 a month. So they're pretty fast, actually. And then you can see here, there's a lot of people enjoying a nice ale with their family. And if we go over to our burgage plots, everything's satisfied. Of course, we're missing something else now. So fruits are going to be hard to do until this thing comes in fully. It's only been 1 year. It needs 3 more years before it's going to do a full harvest. You can see right now we got 32 pears. That's not going to cut it, so we need more. And another bandit. Dude, these guys are crazy. But anyways, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's most of the tips that I would say get you off the ground. There's still a few things we haven't covered, and I'd like to leave some things for you. One thing that I would say before we go, if you want to get retinue, you need to build under the construction tab. You go to administration and military. You can build a manor house by clicking on this, and you build it anywhere, and you'll start to get some. Actually, let's just build it. Let's do that real quick. If you want to expand into other regions, you have to claim it first. So let's say if we wanted to build a new settlement right here and start getting resources from it, you would do that through the admin and military tab right here, settlers camp, and you would place one down. You do need to have 250 treasury, which is something we haven't talked about, which we'll talk about soon once we get the manor built. But that should be pretty good for that. All right, our manor house is just being built. There we go. So as soon as this is built, if we go to our army tab, you'll notice that retinue, you get 5 for free. They just pop up. If you want to build more or you want to increase their numbers, you have to click on them. And then right here under the retinue customization, you can upgrade their armor right here. It costs 26 treasury. And if you want to recruit a new one, it costs 50 treasury. So essentially what I would do with these guys is before you recruit more, get them all upgraded. So click on each one, upgrade them with 26 treasury once you get that. And I'll show you how to get money soon, but make sure they're all fully armored, then recruit one at a time and upgrade them immediately. Don't get a bunch of low tier because they're very expensive. It costs 50. They don't have that great of armor right now. If you do the upgrade, they have really incredible armor. So it's better to have few that are not going to die in battle than have a bunch that are going to get picked off. In my opinion, I think that's the right call. Now, with the manor, you have 2 more options here. You can, if you go over to the taxes tab, you can increase your land tax. So I'm going to increase this to 1% or, I don't know, 2%. You can see you do start to get this approval loss the more you tax your people. So our approval right now is 79%, so it's pretty high. So a -2 isn't going to really change that much, and it will convert basically 1 or 2% of this number into our treasury amount. So whatever your regional wealth is, that number gets taxed and gets turned into your treasury. I don't usually recommend doing a high tax. Like let's say if you want to get 200 gold right now, right? You would need to have a 20% tax. That's going to give you a -17 approval loss for that month. I guess you could if you want. My preference is to leave it on something low, like 1 or 2%, and then let your regional wealth build up so that you're not getting much approval loss, but you're still getting a trickle of treasury. Because once you get your retinue set and you expand, you don't really need this except for to pay the royal tax, which will turn on here. At the end of the year, it'll turn on. But basically, it's an amount that you have to pay out of your treasury. So I would keep it low. Just keep your regional wealth increasing. Build more items to sell. Upgrade more burgage plots. Get more people in here. And then get that passive tax from our Regensburg guildsmen. This is such a good perk, especially if you plan on building a big town. So for your main town, I think that's probably the best one. And then tithe, this does the same thing, but instead of giving you treasury, it uses some of your food and converts it into influence. And obviously we need influence to take over more land. So like, for example, we want to take this one. I'm going to claim it right now. We just used a bunch. If, did it not take it out? Yeah, there it goes. So if we wanted to claim more regions and we don't have any bandits to fight, we would have to do it manually by going in here and increasing the tithe. And like I said, that'll convert. I think it's 1 food turns into 2 influence. So you put a certain percent and it'll chew up your food and convert it into influence. And then the final thing with the manor house, if you go back to the open castle, so as soon as you click on it, on the general tab, you see open castle planner. You can build certain buildings in here, like for example, the garrison tower. This will increase the amount of retinue that you can have. So default is 12. You can double it by building this building. Obviously we need more, we need more logs to be able to do that because we've been building a bunch of stuff. You can also build towers. You can build walls and gates. And then if you want to upgrade those walls and gates, what you do is you click on the building that you built, and then you can increase, or, you know, if you want to go back, and it'll tell you what materials you need to be able to do that. So as you build your walls, I believe you just click on that, and then you have that chance to upgrade it by doing the up arrow. So that's how you do the manor house. That's how you build castles. You can basically go around and use your walls. You can build a nice little castle around here. Make sure you add a gate and all that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of how you use the manor. Don't think there's anything else I really want to cover. There's a few other things we didn't really cover, but I think you'll be able to figure it out from here. I think that's a pretty good ending spot. So let me know in the comments if there's anything you're confused on. I'll be happy to try to elaborate in the comments section if I see it. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.